Public access is also available by telephone by using the call-in numbers posted on the meeting agenda, and tonight's meeting will be broadcast on the city's YouTube channel online. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Leidy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lukeman Haramasa. Here. Councilmember Burns.
Here.
Councilmember Jaramillo.
Here.
Councilmember Kondo.
Here.
Councilmember Roper.
Here.
Councilmember Goff.
Here.
Councilmember Nowicki.
Here.
And Councilmember Walker will be absent.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Manager Guyer, are there any responses to resident inquiry?
Nothing this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda? No, great. Moving into public invited to be heard. This is an opportunity for public comment on any item not set for public hearing. Statements are limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Statements must be related to city business and limited to matters of community interest. City Clerk Small, has anyone signed up to speak to council?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have 4 individuals on the list. The first individual is Lori Goldstein.
Great. Please state your name and address and provide your comments to council.
It's okay that this is on the agenda later?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm Lori Goldstein. I'm a resident of Westminster, and I'm president of the Adams 12 Board of Education. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. So I've come here today to express the board's appreciation for you considering to support the district's bond and mill levy, and hope that you will vote to support it later on this evening. So the mill levy override request specifically targets wages and hiring to allow us to keep us with the needs of students and the competition from neighboring districts in order to provide a high-quality educational experience. Our teachers deserve more, and our students deserve a high-quality learning experience. Adams 12 competes with neighboring districts like Boulder Valley, whose average salary for an educator is roughly $20,000 a year more than our educators. It will also allow Adams 12 to provide greater access to enrichment classes like computer science for elementary school students and expand access to career and technical education classes for both middle school and high school students. As some of you might be aware, roughly 10% of our students are on a wait list for career and technical classes. So if you vote for the bond, it will not result in any new taxes. It simply allows Adams 12 to restructure debt and allow us to focus our funds on aligning infrastructure. Thornton High School is 50 years old, and many Northglenn students attend there. The district has begun to address more and more issues at greater expense as the building continues to age, and we are at the point where investing in a new building just makes more sense. The bond will also allow us, along with expanding our Washington Square campus, and also build a central warehouse for our food service, making it more economical for food delivery in our district. It will also allow us to make improvements to every school in Adams 12, and it will provide either enhanced safety features, improved grounds, replace antiquated heating systems, and more, depending on the particular needs of the school. You can visit Blueprint on our Adams 12 website to explore more. And I just want to highlight some of the things that the Northglenn schools have for points of pride. Malley Drive Elementary engaged in training to examine student data, craft exemplars, and intentionally plan rigorous grade level lessons. Northmore Elementary had a readathon fundraiser that earned nearly $5,000 for STEM materials. Northglenn Middle School's mariachi band has played at multiple events, including McElwain Elementary School's Culture Night and Celebration of Learning. 3 STEM lab teachers down the street were nominated for the Presidential Award of Excellence in Math and Science. And multilingual students from Stookie Elementary demonstrated tremendous success, reaching a median growth percentile of 74.5 in access testing, which is the assessment we give to our English language learners. The Studio School saw end-of-year student improvement in both math and reading. And Vantage Point High School students teamed up with Northglenn High School students to share their experiences with us at the Colorado Association of School Boards. They also had their first Becher Scholar. Amazing young man. Westview Elementary School moved into the performance category for the statewide accreditation system. So these are just some of the things that I wanted to highlight for you tonight of the schools in North Glen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who is next?
The next person on the list is Kayla Swanton.
All right, thank you. Please state your name and address and provide your comments to council.
Hello, my name is Kayla Swanton. I'm a resident of Ward 4 in North Glen. Good evening, City Council members. We recently moved to North Glen and we're proud to call this community home. As an educator in Adams 12 5-star schools for nearly 8 years, choosing to live in the community where I serve was an important factor in our decision to establish roots here. One of my favorite things about Adams 12 is that even though it is a large district, it has a close-knit feel that is reflective of this community. As we have been getting to know our new neighbors, we're learning that many of them have lived here their whole lives. 2 couples on our block alone are North Glen High School grads. So many people choose to build their lives here because it is a great place to live, and that starts with our schools. Our schools are a cornerstone of this community, and ballot measures 5D and 5E are critical to their future. Measure 5D will fund improvements to school facilities, enhance safety, and provide students with modern, effective learning environments. Our new City Council building reflects the pride that we take in North Glen, and passing 5D would extend that pride to our schools, ensuring they reflect the same care and investment. Measure 5E will help to retain and attract the talented teachers and staff who are essential to providing the quality education our students deserve. This measure would also introduce computer science classes in all elementary schools, equipping students with the vital skills that they will need to thrive in our rapidly changing world. Career and technical education offerings would also be expanded in our middle and high schools, giving students pathways to career certifications and college credit before even graduating from high school. With funding from 5E, our kids would have opportunities to learn about business, entrepreneurship, computer science, robotics, digital arts, teaching, pre-engineering, construction trades, aviation, and even the culinary arts. Students can leave Adams 12 schools ready for the future of their choosing, be that here at home or wherever their path in life takes them. These measures are not just educational investments. They're investments in our entire community. By supporting our schools, we strengthen neighborhoods, boost property values, and build a brighter future for all. I urge the North Glen City Council to endorse measures 5D and 5E. Let's take care of our schools, our community, and each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next individual on the list is Tom Lampo.
Come on up. Please state your name and address and your comments to council.
All right. My name is Tom Lampo, 3951 Jackson Way. I was able to come here Saturday and see your new building. It's impressive, and thanks for opening up to everyone. So I'm here to lift up the community of North Glen in prayer. Please join me in prayer. God, in Jesus' name, we ask that you be with us. We invite you here to North Glen. You are always welcome wherever we are. Heavenly Father, you are the God of creation. There is no God above you. You rule and reign in all situations. You have never been defeated, and you never will be. You are victorious over all situations. In Psalm 24:1 it states, "The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. Nothing escapes you. No man can hide from you. There's nothing we do that you aren't aware of, and you still love us." We want to lift up those that have been affected by the 2 recent hurricanes. There are many people that have lost everything. There are many who have lost their lives and left grieving families. Many can't find a path forward. Father, you left your Spirit for us when you ascended from this earth. The Spirit is here to comfort and guide us. You will meet us where we are. All we need to do is let you guide us through all situations. In Revelation 3:20 it states, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in to him and will dine with him, and he with me." You are a loving God, and you will not trample on any of our decisions. You always knock. Send your Spirit to work within us, so we will let you in. You are our God, and we are your people. In your precious name we pray. Amen. Thank you, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
The last individual on the list is Sarah Hughes.
Good evening. Please state your name and address and provide your comments to council.
Hi, my name is Sarah Hughes, and I live up in Westminster, but North Glen is where my mom finished raising me, so it holds a very dear place in my heart, and I couldn't let this opportunity go by to help the community that helped made me who I am. I'm a North Glen High School graduate. I graduated in 2018, but North Glen High School also saw the graduation of, I have it here, I tallied it up, 6 aunts, 4 uncles, my mother, 4 of my cousins, my younger brother, and my best friend. So our schools are really the cornerstone of our community, because without a school, there's not really any basis for community. Those friendships aren't able to be established. And not all of those aunts and uncles are related to me by blood, but all are actually my aunts and uncles. Now that I've graduated from North Glen, I go to Metropolitan State University downtown. I'm taking a class this semester called Econometrics. It's like economy and statistics put together. It's super interesting. But we use real data sets when we do regressions and to see how variables are related to each other. The average hourly earnings, that's AHE, is related to the years of schooling, but more importantly, it's also related to the quality of schooling. Now, you can't really quantify the quality of something, you just can't do it, but you can get near it. You can approximate that relationship. The way you approximate that relationship is by district income. School district income or average district income. So I've gone over my homework, and without having that district income be supportive, I could have over 20 years of schooling, and I could still have a very low AHE. So I'm here today with my homework in hand to ask that you, the members of council, support 5D and 5E, because the economic future of North Glen depends on the economic success of its young people. My grandfather tried to get my brother, my cousins, and I into the stock market. He bought a book and everything, Stock Market for Kids. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you, it didn't super take. But I learned about a thing called ROI, return on investment. Some people believe that an ROI needs to be in measurable dollars. It needs to be hard, concrete data, when the ROI for a lot of things isn't able to be measured by that. The ROI in this case would be a successful, happy community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the audience who did not have a chance to sign up that would like to speak to council this evening? Okay. Is there anyone on the phone who would like to speak to council? You may press *6 to unmute at this time. I don't think we have any. Okay, thank you so much. We're going to move into proclamations. We have 3 proclamations and one of our presentations, if council would join me down front. Good evening. This is our first proclamation down front in our new council chambers. So I would like to invite some special guests to join us for Business Appreciation Week. So we have winners from last year's Business Appreciation event. So from our Denver Recovery Group, do we have Denise Vincioni? Come on up. Brittany Newman, Jessica Zem, and then from Independent Electrical Contractors Rocky Mountain Association, we have Annette Gauna and Joe Laughlin. Thank you. Whereas the City of North Glen is committed to fostering a thriving business community that contributes to the economic vitality and quality of life in our city. And whereas our local businesses, ranging from small family-owned shops to large corporations, each play a crucial role in providing goods and services to our local and neighboring communities, expanding the availability of local employment opportunities and contributing to the city's robust tax base. And whereas Business Appreciation Week is an opportunity to recognize and celebrate the dedication, hard work, and significant contributions of our business community. And whereas during this week, we will highlight the achievements of our businesses, encourage community support, and promote a spirit of collaboration and partnership among business owners, city officials, and residents. And whereas the council wishes to acknowledge, express gratitude, and celebrate our business community as the city prepares to host North Glen's 12th annual Business Appreciation event on Tuesday, October 29th. Now, therefore, I, Meredith Leidy, Mayor of the City of North Glen, Colorado, hereby proclaim October 28th through November 1st as Business Appreciation Week in the City of North Glen, and call upon the community to join me in expressing our heartfelt gratitude to our business community for their invaluable contributions to the prosperity and well-being of our city. Dated at North Glen, Colorado, this 14th day of October, 2024. So, thank you for joining us as our special guests. Do any of you want to add or say anything?
I have a, can I read?
Oh, yes, please, thank you.
IEC is a Rocky Mountain chapter of Independent Electrical Contractors. We're an energy trade association for the region serving over 300 electrical contractor companies and industry partners. We are the largest independent merit shop electrical registered apprenticeship training program in the U.S., training more than 2,800 apprentices in this community. We have been in operation since 1981, and in 2016, we moved to this wonderful city of North Glen. We are grateful for this recognition and are proud to have twice received awards from North Glen for large business and community spirit.
I don't know if I can be as eloquent as you. We are Denver Recovery Group, and our team, we have been in the city of Denver since 2015, and we came into North Glen in 2021. And I just want to say, by far, we treat people that are marginalized in our community, underserved, and most of the time when we get invited to events, it isn't in recognition. So we really want to thank you, the City of North Glen and Mayor Leidy and everyone that's invited us to be a part of this event and for honoring the work that we do. We serve over 1,500 patients that are addicted to opiates like fentanyl, et cetera, in our community. And we are really happy that the City of North Glen has been so open to us, because stigma follows what we do, and a lot of times we don't get this kind of welcoming. So we appreciate you, and thank you so much for allowing us to do what we do in our community. Do you guys want to say anything?
So we're going to take a photo. So this copy of the proclamation I'm going to give to IEC, and we have another proclamation for you that will be sent over. We just had one tonight. So we're going to scooch in and take a photo all together. I think David's gonna take a ladder there.
See how it looks. You guys gotta go back.
All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Ready? Can you do some more? Yeah, right there, perfect. And 3, 2, 1. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having us. Thanks. I love it. Thanks for having us.
Our second proclamation tonight is for Italian Heritage Month. So North Glen resident and employee Bob Badovanak. So if he could come on up. And members. Did you have guests with you? Yeah, bring them all up. Come on up, join us. How are you? Good. All right. Whereas Italian Heritage Month is commemorated every October to honor the Italian American community and celebrate the rich heritage of Italy with its traditions, language, and customs that continue to inspire and influence communities around the world, including right here in North Glen. And whereas the first Italian immigrants arrived in the United States over 200 years ago, and today, Italian Americans represent a vibrant and integral part of our diverse national fabric. Over 26 million Americans of Italian descent currently reside in the United States, making Italian Americans the fifth largest ethnic group in our nation. And whereas Italian Americans have made significant economic, social, and cultural contributions in the areas of government, science and technology, arts and entertainment, literature, education, medicine, military service, and culinary arts. And whereas Italian Americans were instrumental in establishing Colorado as a leader in railroad transportation, the mining, timber, and masonry industries, and agricultural production and distribution. And whereas the City of North Glen proudly celebrates the history, culture, and traditions of our local Italian American community, which continues to contribute to the vibrant life of our society through a strong sense of family, faith, hard work, and civic engagement. Now, therefore, I, Meredith Leidy, Mayor of the City of North Glen, Colorado, do hereby proclaim October 2024 as Italian Heritage Month in the City of North Glen, and encourage all residents to learn more about the history of Italy and the importance of the Italian American experience in shaping our local and national identity. Dated at North Glen, Colorado, this 14th day of October, 2024. So Bob, thanks for coming back again this year. Would you want to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor, Council, City Manager Heather, and the people, employees of North Glen. It's an honor that you recognize us and that you recognize all the people you do throughout the year. I'm proud to be a resident of North Glen, and just wanted to remind people to learn more about the heritage. We're all in the Dante Alighieri Society, which teaches the culture and the arts and the language of Italy. And it's easy to find on the, you just Google Dante Alighieri's Society of Denver, and everything's there for you. So thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. Good, thank you.
Told her what I said about you dancing. Thank you. Okay, yes.
Okay, our third one tonight. October is also National Arts and Humanities Month. So we have members of our North Glen Arts and Humanities Foundation and staff from Parks, Recreation, and Culture to accept this proclamation. So if you are here, come on down. Whereas National Arts and Humanities Month is observed in October to celebrate the invaluable contributions of artists, educators, cultural institutions, and organizations that enrich our communities through the arts. And whereas the arts and humanities enhance the quality of life, promote cultural diversity, strengthen social and community bonds, and contribute significantly to the economic vitality of our city. And whereas the arts and humanities provide a creative outlet for self-expression, inspire thought and dialogue, foster lifelong learning, and encourage appreciation of different perspectives and traditions. And whereas the city of North Glen is home to many talented artists, musicians, writers, performers, and cultural organizations that reflect the diverse and vibrant character of our city. And whereas the City of North Glen is fortunate to partner with the North Glen Arts and Humanities Foundation, which sponsors affordable, quality arts programs and performances at the Parsons Theater, in city parks and schools. And whereas the council wishes to celebrate the important role that arts and humanities play in our lives, as well as to encourage greater public participation in and support for these essential activities. Now, therefore, I, Meredith Leidy, Mayor of the City of North Glen, Colorado, do hereby proclaim October 2024 as National Arts and Humanities Month in the City of North Glen, and encourage community members to explore, appreciate, and support the arts and humanities by attending cultural events, enjoying performances, and engaging with the creative spirit that thrives in our city. Dated at North Glen, Colorado, this 14th day of October, 2024. So I love that so many of you joined us. Who wants the microphone?
Thank you very much, Mayor. So the North Glen Arts and Humanities Foundation was founded in 1990. It's a 501c3 organization, and it raises over $250,000 every year for North Glen Arts programs. So to the NAHF board members that are here tonight, thank you very much for all of your time. I appreciate it. And then we have a fantastic staff at North Glen Arts that make this happen every day. So thank you to staff as well. And then lastly, thank you to the mayor and city council for all of your support for the arts. It's good to celebrate Arts and Humanities Month. Thank you.
Oh, no. Yeah. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Yeah, right. Am I good to go? Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to let me introduce you to some of our outstanding community members who are the newest recipients of the Good Neighbor Award. For those who are unfamiliar of this award, it's a way to recognize residents who kind of go above and beyond in our community and positively impact our neighbors. Tonight, we will acknowledge 4 residents, although only 1 was able to make it tonight. First, we'll recognize Rock Craigmail, who was nominated by Teresa Medina and wrote that Rock has lived in Northglenn for 22 years. He's very well liked in our neighborhood because he's very friendly, he's very kind, and willing to help anyone whenever they need it. He shovels for senior neighbors and has helped with many projects over the years. Rock works for an HVAC company and helps his neighbors with their furnace or AC problems as well. When a neighbor is on vacation, he is always happy to keep an eye on their property. He's truly a great neighbor. So thank you, Mr. Craigmile. Next, we'll recognize Lauren Mayo. She was nominated by Heather Delaire. Ms. Delaire wrote, Lauren always helps every single neighbor. When someone is out of town, she watches their house, gets packages, etc. When my bathroom was getting remodeled for a severe leak, she brought over a goodie bag to help me get through the stressful situation. Lauren helps the neighborhood kids about nature and safety as well. She's always thinking of others and is always willing to lend a helping hand when needed. We're really lucky to have her in our life. So Ms. Mayo, if you wouldn't mind joining us up here.
It's okay.
3, 2, 1. Thank you. Lastly, we'll recognize Yvonne and Sharon. The nominator didn't know their last names, and I tried to reach out to them a couple times and never was able to get a hold of them. But nonetheless, they're great. But Ms. Rodriguez wrote, Yvonne and Sharon consistently go above and beyond for members of our community, especially the elderly members in our neighborhood. For instance, a neighbor lives outside of Colorado during this winter months, and when we have a hard freeze, they went over and thawed the downspout without being asked. They were concerned about it causing serious issues for the neighbor, and they went above and beyond. Additionally, my husband is 92 and I'm 86, and they will always come and help me shovel. They're excellent neighbors and make the community better because there isn't anything they wouldn't do to help our little neighborhood. We're blessed to know them and have them as our neighbors. So thank you, Yvonne and Sharon. And then again, thank you very much for having me.
It's always fun to celebrate together, so thank you. Our second presentation tonight is the Rocky Mountain Partnership. So come on up. We have a special guest with us.
Hello. I know we have slides.
Slides, great.
What? Oh, I have to click. Is there a specific button, Heather? Hold on. Oh. Voila. Well, there we are. So thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. I am honored to be here not only as a Ward 2 resident of North Glen, but as a leader within the Rocky Mountain Partnership, which is a collective impact network that the city has been a part of since 2017, that predates myself with this organization. And we haven't been in front of you in a few years. And so the purpose of our presentation today is really to just share a little bit more about who Rocky Mountain Partnership is, the role of North Glen within that, why it impacts you all, answer any questions that you may have, but just really wanting to share information and hopefully see if there are any opportunities for engagement or things that we can have moving forward. And I want to recognize a couple of things. I know the agendas say that Lysandra Gonzalez, our CEO, is going to be presenting today. We are a very tiny and mighty team, and so we had to divide and conquer, so she sends her regards. But I am joined by Emily Sanders, who's our Senior Director of Collaborative Actions. She's brand new. She's fantastic. Who can answer questions. And then Sarah Hughes, who you heard from earlier, is one of our civic influencers. So I'll talk a little bit about that work as well. And if there's any specific questions, they can both allude to those. So I am just going to share a little bit of information about Rocky Mountain Partnership. Like I mentioned, we're a collective impact network, and our mission really is to unite the community to support children and young people. Specifically, we're focused on up to the age of 35 in achieving critical milestones from cradle all the way through career. And this is towards our shared vision that every young person, regardless of background or circumstance, is thriving and contributing to a vibrant economy. We are really proud to be part of the national network called Strive Together. They're based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. There's about 70 networks like Rocky Mountain Partnership across the country, but we are the only in the state of Colorado right now. What that means is we follow their evidence-based, globally recognized collective impact framework, which is linked here for your review, but it's kind of the art and the science of bringing people together and moving towards outcomes. As our national affiliate last year, Strive Together put out a goal to see 4 million more young people up to the age of 35 hitting critical cradle-to-career milestones by 2030. And the call to action to networks like ours was, what portion of that 4 million, what does that look like for your community? And so I'll share a little bit about our target in a few minutes, but really excited to spoil that we were the first network in the country to name our target, which we're really proud of. We talk about economic and social mobility, upward mobility, economic success, but what does that really mean and how do you measure that? We know there's a lot of different ways that this can be quantified, but our network, really in alignment with Strive Together, has landed on some really clear cradle to career milestones that we know the data supports that when young people are hitting these, they are more likely to continue on that upward trajectory. Now, that doesn't mean that other things aren't important. In fact, what's impacting someone's ability to be reading at a third grade level or graduating high school or being employed at a good wage is largely happening outside of the classroom. And so we have a regional well-being index. We're looking at data across 5 different buckets that include basic needs, health and mental health, social criminal justice, in addition to education and workforce outcomes that you might expect. And a lot of the work that we're doing is both in but largely outside of the classroom. So when we look at that data from a state lens, there's about 826,616 children and young people, again, up to the age of 35, who are not currently hitting these milestones. You can see the breakdown here from a state level. I'll also share with what that looks like in City of North Glen in a second. The footprint that we currently serve includes all of Adams County, the city and county of Broomfield, the city of Arvada, and the city of Aurora, and that does include the entirety of those cities, not just the Adams County portions. For that footprint, about 123,000 young people aren't hitting these milestones. It is an approximation because of the way that data works, but it's about 1/3 of young people in our region. So pretty stark story there. And I'll share a little bit in a minute that, especially from a policy standpoint, our vision really does extend beyond that region, but our work and the things that we're focused on right now, when we talk about the RMP region, that is our footprint there. When we look at the city of North Glen in particularly, that's a little over 7,500 children and young people not hitting these milestones. So you can see the data here. And these data points, I'm not the data person, full disclosure, but that we looked at the data that's available to us for the schools that are in North Glen. So it's not necessarily the residents, but who is within the Adams 12 footprint in the schools that are within the city of North Glen here. We know there's a lot of issues facing our young people as a state. Not only is our population aging and growing more diverse, upward mobility doesn't look the same for everybody. We also know that we are importing a lot of talent as a state. And so a lot of the work that we're doing at the Rocky Mountain Partnership is wanting to address these things more broadly, but again, starting in our region. We also know that it's really expensive to live here and meet basic needs in these regions, in our region. Within, again, to look at just the city of North Glen, about 11% of young people are living below the poverty line. Only 34% of North Glen community members 25 and older have some sort of post-high school credential or degree, and now that's not just 2- and 4-year degrees that we're looking at. And 61% of renters and 24% of homeowners are paying more than 30% of their monthly income on housing, meaning that they're cost burdened. I don't want to spend a lot of time here too, but this has an impact not just on the human beings, but on the economy more broadly, that when people are hitting these milestones and on that pathway, that it really is the full picture of what that impacts. Oops. So before I talk about our target, like I shared, I just want to say our team, the Rocky Mountain Partnership core team, our job is really to bring folks together, including community, and help those partners work towards a shared vision and measurable goal. And so we like to say that we are the neutral team. We are not neutral to the shared targets that the network sets, but we're neutral to the agendas that everyone is bringing to the table to really try and help us to move in the same direction. And so not only are we bringing key stakeholders together, including those who are most impacted by these issues, but we're facilitating data-driven decision-making, operating a centralized knowledge base that includes mostly publicly available data, providing technical assistance, coaching, and support to partners. We advocate for policy at all levels and work to align critical funding to the things that work. So that's the function of our tiny team. But what's really exciting is our 2030 strategic plan, which we're calling the Resiliency Project. This is the goal that I mentioned earlier that was announced last November, that Rocky Mountain Partnership wants to see 71,000 more children and young people up to the age of 75 hitting those cradle to career milestones by 2030. It's interesting, and the question that we get asked a lot, because we shared earlier the gap was 123,000. The reason why 71,000 is the goal is because that gets us to the rate that we were at before the COVID-19 pandemic. And so it is ambitious in and of itself, but it's also just the first step in a phased approach to not only get us back to where we were, but then ultimately sustain, grow, and accelerate that progress. We've broken down our target a couple of ways. First and foremost, by outcome or by metric. On the back end, we have some really either scary or exciting spreadsheets, depending on who you are, that look at this through an equity lens. So we can tell not only how many more young people do we need enrolling in some sort of skill or credential program, but what does that look like based on race, ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status, et cetera, so that we can really work on closing those equity gaps. We're also really firm believers that we can't improve what we can't measure. So we're measuring it by school year as well because of the way that this data is collected. So for this current school year, 24-25, our goal is at least 3,398 more young people. Same thing, broken down by metric through an equity lens. And you can see that each year those goals go up as we set more infrastructure and get more partners on board to do this work. The work is 3 strategies that are outlined in the strategic plan. And I'll talk very briefly about each of them and happy to answer any questions that you may have. The first are target champions. And actually, since we sent these slides, we have more that have joined, so I'll share that in a second. But these are really entities or groups that are setting and committing their own goals towards that 71,000. So they're saying we are already doing direct service because Rocky Mountain Partnership, we're not a direct service provider. These partners are. And so they're setting goals to say how many more young people can we claim towards that shared goal that will hit whatever metrics it is that we do. Because we're already doing that work. And so we actually have 11 confirmed target champions. So adding to this list, I think we have the Yes Institute. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to have to come back and remember where, but we have 11 now. It can include, as you see here, school districts, nonprofits, economic development entities, higher education. And so they're really saying, what is it that not only what can we do, but it's pushing them to set more ambitious targets that they might otherwise have set, which is some of the feedback that we've heard directly from some of these leaders. We also have our high impact projects, or HIPs. So Target Champions is all about mobilizing the ecosystem that already exists. High impact projects are about filling those gaps that we know still exist as well. And so our team is project managing and facilitating these collaborative projects to come together really to either address barriers that multiple Target Champions are experiencing or incubate some innovative solutions. And so when we think about what those things are, we're focused on re-engaging learners that might have started some sort of post-secondary pathway but fallen off, really working to expand and enhance training sites to meet employers' needs, but also those of our learners, so thinking CTE programs not only within our K-12 districts but also within our community college systems to not only be consistent across each other, but to meet those needs of employers. Improving educational and career guidance, so navigation. We hear so often anecdotally that the thing that was the difference for a young person so often is that one mentor, that adult that knew how to help navigate them along a pathway, and it wasn't ending with one institution. And so really looking at some innovative ways to help fill that gap. And then this slide has actually been updated as well. What is it? Learning at work. Thank you, Emily. Learning at work, or work-based learning, right? So think apprenticeships. We heard from ICRM earlier today, so the work that they're doing to expand not only the opportunities that exist for learning at work, so that there can be more sectors where those exist, but also that learners know about them and can access those. In the policy space, we're also really working, like I said, at a statewide. We know that we can have more teeth as a network, especially for the state legislature, if we're not just one region, but we're looking as a state. And so one of the things that we're officially announcing later this year, but is Cradle to Career Colorado. The language hasn't been finalized yet, but think alliance or coalition, not those words, but really that statewide force to come around together with other entities that are doing policy work that impact cradle to career outcomes to advocate for those things at the state level. Shared policy agendas, and then what I'm really excited to share about is the Civic Influencer Fellowship Program, Sarah being one of our current civic influencers, and we have I think are doing interviews over this last weekend for new fellows. These are 16 to 24-year-olds who live and work in our community and are impacted by the things that they're not usually invited to the tables to not only just inform, but actually co-develop solutions for. And so through the Civic Influencer Fellowship, they receive stipends for their time and expertise, the training, the mentorship, but also that practicum experience. So they are out there and they're registering people to vote. They're getting experience testifying at City Council, at Board of Ed, at the state legislature, to really become catalysts for change in the community after they leave this fellowship. So we're also working to ensure that they're connected with other leadership opportunities after they leave the 9-month fellowship. Oh, and there is some information there. The who is another question that we get a lot. And so our team, like I said, we are supporting this larger network. We have a community leadership council that is comprised of, I think the most recent count is 33 different organizations. Several of them have multiple individuals represented there, from K-12, higher ed, local government, law enforcement, the private sector, healthcare, mental health, some state entities or departments as well. They're led by this executive committee that you see that does include 2 of our civic influencers, really woven into the decision-making of our network, that have the same decision-making power as the C-suite leaders that they sit alongside. But our community leadership council is just one way that entities engage, and they really are driving the strategy. They're voting on whether or not the network is going to support a policy or take a different strategic direction, adopt a target, like that 71,000, for example. That was the official presentation. Happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you. I'll start with Councilmember Jaramillo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the wonderful presentation, all the work that you do, and influencers here, and thank you. Keep up the great work. That was an awesome presentation you did earlier, too. The question I have is, as a metric for the success for young adults, what is considered a good wage?
That is such a great question. And the answer is it's not what it needs to be. So the data that's available right now is looking at the self-sufficiency wage. And because I'm not the data person, I'll have to get the exact number for you. But there's a state definition around what is self-sufficient and a good wage, but it's more than minimum wage to be able to actually be thriving. So if you're okay with that, I will follow up and get the exact number for what is included in that definition.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Councilmember Kondo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Also, thank you for your presentation. I have two questions. The first one goes back to slide 17, which is, I think you call it the Regional Target Champions Initiative. And I'm just trying to connect the dots. Last month, I attended the Adams County Symposium on Chronic Absenteeism. So is this initiative also driven to help inspire and motivate parents or guardians to make sure that their children are getting to school? Because I don't really see anything about trying to address chronic absenteeism in here.
That's a really great question. I'm actually going to back up, if you'll humor me for just 1 second, to look at just what these metrics are. So the idea with Target Champions is that they are doing work that directly impact these things, where they can say that we take accountability for how many more young people will be graduating from high school or enrolling or testing at 8th grade proficient levels. And so that very well could include chronic absenteeism, but it kind of depends on what the entity is, if that makes sense. I think where chronic absenteeism is going to come into play more in the future is around our high impact projects, because we know that that is a key factor and barrier that is getting in the way of young people hitting these metrics. But the Target Champions themselves, I would say they're not RMP strategies. It's more of us really empowering those that are doing things that directly impact these things to set targets around those.
Okay. What struck me was when I was sitting in the symposium, they were talking about chronic absenteeism being defined as missing 2 days per month. And I can't recall all the stats that was put out by Colorado Department of Education, but, clearly being qualified as a chronic absentee has significant impacts on the student's ability to advance to the next grade, or for that matter, their graduation potential, graduating high school. So, to me, when I listen and I look at what your initiatives are, I really wonder if chronic absenteeism should be really one of your, front and center foci of effort, so to speak.
Yeah, two things. One, CASA, the Court Appointed Special Advocates for Adams and Broomfield, is a key partner here, and they do a lot of work as a direct service provider that addresses chronic absenteeism. So I see you nodding your head. I don't know if you're familiar with the work that they do, but they're really expanding the one-on-one navigation support beyond truancy, beyond open dependency and neglect cases, to really focus on those students who are, like you said, would be defined as chronic absenteeism. And so that's one of our Target Champions, and I think one opportunity there. The other thing that I wanted to share is that we use a tool called a key driver, which looks kind of like a big scary spider web. It's our answer to a logic model, where it starts on the left side of what is the problem and what does the data say, what are the factors and barriers most impacting that data, and then what are the strategies and interventions that we're doing to address those. And you're absolutely right, chronic absenteeism does show up as a major factor that impedes cradle to career success. I think when we got to our high impact projects, we originally had, I think, 10 to 12 projects, chronic absenteeism being one of them. We really quickly realized that we have to be laser focused on a few that we can really have an impact on now, as opposed to looking at everything all at once. And so it's definitely something top of mind for the network, but I would say that would be like in the next phase, really focusing on those other high impact projects right now.
Yeah, I really like your comment about focusing on the essential few, which leads me to my second question. And that is, I wonder if you have a particular opinion or thought about, Colorado's CMAS program, the standardized testing, and system to be able to determine whether a student can pass to the next grade or not. It seems to me, at least anecdotally, when I talk to parents and I talk to teachers, it sounds like it's a broken system, that quite honestly, students are being advanced when they don't really meet the standard. And it sounds like that is also a contributing factor to students' poor performance. And I wonder if that is something that should fall underneath your advanced policy initiatives. Can you comment on that?
I can, and you're absolutely right. That's something that we hear as well. I think that the first piece of that is we have to use the data that's available to us right now, knowing that it's not perfect and knowing that there are a lot of challenges with that. I am not a CMAS expert, but I've also heard a lot of those same concerns about it not necessarily being the most accurate measurement of whether someone is the scores that we would use that for our third grade reading and eighth grade math. And so while we are using CMAS scores because that is the data that we have available to us right now, that has absolutely come up as a policy opportunity and priority for the network. There isn't anything currently that we're advocating for, but it is definitely something that the network is aware of and interested in, should there be an opportunity to advocate for that.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you so much for being here. That was a most excellent presentation. I love all the data that you have in there. It's both informative and eye-opening when we look at just how our residents are affected, how our future is affected by that lack of continuing education, and CTE programs are so important, which is why I'm excited that we're discussing 5D and 5E. But I do have a question for you. I'm very interested in learning more about one of your high impact projects, the incubate the launch of a youth resource and assessment center to wrap youth and families with supports needed. I mean, right now, we're looking at a family justice center that's kind of a one-stop place for families that need help, that are leaving abusive situations, for example. So, and we have the Ralston House that helps abused children. So I'm wondering if it's something like that, full wraparound services, what I'm envisioning when you say this, like what are the ideas for that? I know it says incubate still, so it's still in the process, but we'd just love to hear more about that.
Yeah, well, and I apologize because these are not the most updated slides, and so that's actually no longer a high impact project. However, I can speak to that a little bit. And so, yes, our district attorney is doing amazing work around the family justice system, but also looking at a youth assessment center, essentially, that really not only replaces but goes above and beyond what the Link used to do, if you're familiar with that nonprofit a few years ago. And so Rocky Mountain Partnership was pulled in. We were engaged around that incubation of what that might be able to look like, and what support we could provide around data and community engagement and things like that. Right now, we are taking a step back because that group is well equipped and moving forward with the Youth Assessment Center, really focusing more on the immediate need of community and not yet to the juncture where they're looking kind of longer term outcomes, if you will, for young people. And so it's a project that we are really excited about, really excited to support the work that they're doing. They also recently were, I don't know what the correct word is, but awarded 501c3 status to actually start this center. And so they're doing a lot of that work through the CJCC in the DA's office.
Okay.
So, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't see any other questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, we will move into council communications, starting with Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, so quite a few things here. CCPP met last week. I was unable to attend because I was solo parenting, but they talked a lot about the Access North Glen report, and as well as working with the Halloween and Fall decorations contest as well, and also giving a shout out to Safe Streets Halloween on the 19th. If anyone would like to attend, please do. We also had a great couple events last week that a lot of us attended, almost all of them, for our grand opening for our new building. Our public we had our event on Thursday, and then our big public event on Saturday, which was great. I'm sure everyone else will talk more about that. Okay, so then I am reporting out for Ledge Committee. We met today. So the first update is that Mayor Pro Tem and our city attorney presented to the CML Policy Committee, and they voted unanimously 56-0 in support of CML initiating legislation that limits the distance of registered sex offenders living in mental health transitional facilities from places where children congregate. So that is good news. We also got an update on Bill C, local government permitting wireless telecom facilities. Right now, CML is holding an opposed position due to local control. So we're going to be monitoring that. We, as a committee, also decided to not take any stances on any of the state ballot questions for this election cycle. And then we discussed our legislative guide, what that's going to look like for 2025. So we'll review that and vote on that as a resolution when that comes time. We also discussed, we had a very productive 45 minutes. We also discussed hosting our legislative dinner in December, January. We are going to move forward with that and invite everyone who represents us from up and down the ticket. So we're looking at some new voices to attend potentially. And we're going to continue to look at some dates for the spring breakfast at the state legislature as well. Okay, that's all for me. That's a lot for me usually.
Thank you, Councilmember Jaramillo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I attended the North Glen Arts and Humanities Foundation board meeting on October 2nd, and I want to thank all the board members and Michael Stricker for being here today to celebrate the arts. I'm an artist myself, so that's where I found myself being involved here in North Glen first, was being a board member with the North Glen Arts and Humanities Foundation, starting in 2016. So great news, the SCFD Award, that's the Scientific Cultural Facilities District. We were awarded $163,000, and then we were awarded 88% of the funding that we applied for, which is great. And you'll see that with all the programming that we have going on, even general operating costs, youth theater, audience development, and Art on Parade, of course, which is our sculpture program that we have been going on since, I believe, 2000. After that, on Saturday, October 5th, I attended the Dia de los Muertos workshop with the DICE board, the Diversity Inclusivity Board, and we painted candles to commemorate those who've passed away. And I was able to create one for my family, but also for the late Lucille Rivera, who we dedicated the new art gallery in our recreation center to the following day on October 6th. And that's her photography is actually showing there. And the exhibition is titled Kiss of Life. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done. I worked with Lucille to hang up the art. Every few months, it's a seasonal rotating art show, so I was able to work with Lucille plenty of times. I worked with her at Chalk Gallery, Chicano Humanities Arts Council during grad school as an event coordinator when she was the executive director. So it's very awesome that we can see her legacy with the arts in the community here in North Glen living on. After that, I attended the October 9th Adams County Government Sub-Regional Transportation Forum, and we had an I-25 presentation from US 36 to 104th Avenue, and I advocated for expanding the on-ramp from 104th southbound to connect to Thornton Parkway's off-ramp, so there's not that quick turnaround where you have to merge on. So I expressed my how I try to avoid that off or on ramp, and I'll go to another one because of that, the potential for an accident. So hopefully we'll be seeing that very soon. There's also going to be what's called a divergent diamond interchange, which sounds very ambitious. It'll be a It'll be dealing with public transportation in the center of I-25 around 88th Avenue. And there'll be plenty of public presentations on this later on, but I wanted to bring that to your attention. And let's see, of course, we attended the VIP opening for our new beautiful City Hall where we're sitting in today. It was a wonderful evening. I want to just say that it was fantastic to bring everybody in to dedicate our new sculpture by Jody Bliss, a sculptor from Monument. It was a wonderful evening, and it was a toast to North Glen. So thank you for everybody who helped make this vision a reality. And I also attended the new City Hall public grand opening, and got to do some dancing outside in the sun, so in broad daylight, which was a lot of fun with my colleagues. So we had a lot of great people out there celebrating with us from Thornton City Council and Westminster City Council, and they're looking at us to lead the way. So we're happy to be doing that. And so far, that's all I got. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nowicki?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So let's see, a couple things from me. Last Monday, the Finance Committee met to identify and propose guidance to the entire council to narrow or formally document spending parameters. This potentially extending beyond the 7K travel, training travel limit, which could include apparel purchases, meals at hosted events, ward meetings, similar expenses, things like that. So stay tuned for that discussion. I, too, had the opportunity to attend the City Hall, is it gala or gala? I've had this debate with people. I say gala, so City Hall gala. It was a great opportunity to meet other members of the community, the larger Adams County community, and celebrate the hard work of the city staff. Thank you, city staff, for all of your hard work. I know things didn't quite go as planned with regard to the event planning stuff, but you guys pulled it off amazingly, and it was a really great opportunity. The weather was great. It was a fantastic night. I also had the opportunity to do the tour day as well, and that was wonderful also. We got a great time. Got to have brunch with some residents, mingle with other residents, and then got to kind of welcome people taking the tour, and it was just a great experience. Plus, I got to hand out popsicle coupons, so people love popsicles. I got a lot of very positive feedback on just people that took the tour. Sounds like it was a really good, thorough tour. It wasn't just 5 minutes in, 5 minutes out. So that's great. And again, just couldn't beat the weather. So yeah, let's hope it hangs on. Lastly, I did want to bring up in recent discussions about ballot issue 1A, which is the affordable housing sales tax. I've made an effort to reach out to my colleagues to seek consensus on revisiting this issue in study session. The Legislative Committee raised some important questions with regard to this ballot measure, and it's important that we thoroughly evaluate the potential impacts and benefits this measure could bring to North Glen. The rising cost of housing in North Glen and the larger region will continue to impact our residents negatively. Our own housing needs assessment completed 2 years ago concluded that the city must increase both the number and diversity of housing options to maintain affordability and meet the needs of current and future residents. While I understand there are differing viewpoints with regard to 1A, I believe a renewed and thoughtful discussion will allow us to explore all perspectives and fully consider what's best for our community. So be on the lookout for that. That is everything. Thank you.
Councilmember Goff.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's see. Some of this has already been mentioned, but the Dice Board has funded and sponsored 2 events. The one that Councilmember Jaramillo mentioned, and then there will be one that was on October 8th, and then there will be one on November 3rd. So keep an eye out for that. They are all put on by the Latino Cultural Arts Center, so I'm sure they'll be really fun and interesting So I look forward to seeing more people there. Also, let's see, October 6th, again, that was the Lucille Rivera Arts Gallery opening. And that I also worked with Lucille Rivera on the diversity board. She was an amazing woman that just worked so hard and did so many different things. And so I was very honored to be able to have that art gallery named for her. And then October 10th and then October 12th, that was all of our City Hall opening events. We had a huge number of people will go through, talk to a lot of people. Everybody was in awe of our beautiful building. And I look forward to many years of people coming in the door and just being wowed. And then I also wanted to recognize that today is Indigenous Peoples Day, and so I wanted to honor Native peoples who were in this land before we were, and that's it for me.
Thank you. Councilmember Kondo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you know, I try to be brief, but since it's been a while since we had a formal meeting, I do have 6 items. First of all, I do want to acknowledge staff, Northglenn Police Department, for all the great support and all the work that went on in connection with the opening of this new City Hall. And I do want to also acknowledge Ashley Garner, who was our former council member from Ward 1. That was quite a treat to see her because she had moved back east after she had left here. And so it was really nice to be able to commune with her and share this very special place that she was a part of in its inception. I did a ride-along with Officer Taylor on Friday night, and it's kind of funny. They call it the curse of the rider. Generally, when you have a ride-along, it's just really crickets. Nothing is happening, and this was like from 4 to 10 p.m. on Friday. And then as I'm walking out the door, all of a sudden, everything lights up. There's a hold-up and a couple other events. But the one thing that I want to share is that I observed 2 officers that are on FTO Phase 3, Officers Marquez and Garduno, and it was really impressive to see them kind of going off like being a person under instruction, but yet allowed to go and do all those things without prompting from their minder or from their senior officer. And it really impresses me a great deal that the police department now, I think, is 100%. I hope I'm not misstating that fact, or we'll be very close very soon.
Close.
Okay, very good. And you know, again, just being out there and riding along in the community, I call it Northglenn after hours, really gives you a sense of what is going on. And I'm happy to report that, you know, it is, on balance, a very safe community, and it's because we have a great police department. I am a member and I represent the city on DRCOG, Denver Region Council of Governments. Yes, DRCOG is not a person, it's an entity. And I'm happy to report that the youth free fare, which was a seasonal sort of pilot study, is now a permanent fixture. So now anybody under the age of 19 is able to ride any RTD bus, train for free. And also RTD is extending free fare for anybody on the following dates related to early election, October 29th, and of course on Election Day, November 5th. I had the opportunity to tour the Riverdale Animal Shelter about a week ago or 10 days ago now. Very interesting. It opened in 2020, and this was in the depth of COVID, so probably very few people have been inside that shelter. It was nominally designed to accept about 5,000 animals per year. Last year, they accepted 6,500 animals, 6,500 animals. And when I say animals, it could be a variety: dogs, cats, hamsters, snakes, gerbils, whatever. Out of that, they adopted 3,900. And basically, the rest of the animals, they try and circulate among other animal shelters to get them adopted out. But the fact of the matter is, this facility is really, it's beautiful. It is part of the Adams County organization, governmental structure. They have 3 full-time vets. And the thing that I want to share with you all is that they offer low-cost vaccinations and chipping services. And getting your pet chipped is the fastest way, if you ever lose your cat, dog, or whatever, for you to be reunited with your loved one, with your pet. And it was just amazing to see how many pets come into the door who were not chipped. So if you're interested in this, some of the vaccinations are like only $15. Please go to the Adams County website or just Google Riverdale Animal Shelter low-cost vaccinations, and you can sign up for your vaccination appointment. Not your vaccination, but your pet's vaccination appointment. Boy, I tell you, I think I'm going to get in trouble. On the 9th, the mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and myself, we attended the SCFD Science Culture Foundation District, I believe is what that stands for, celebratory dinner with Michael Stricker and several other staff members to really celebrate the arts and humanities in Adams County. I learned this as well, that Adams County is the only county in Colorado that has a culture council, I believe, which is quite interesting. It makes Adams County quite unique in terms of the value and how much we put on having cultures and humanities here in our part of the state. Lastly, North Metro Fire, which I also represent on as a city for North Metro Fire. Happy to report that we have had 6 people deploy with Colorado Task Force 1. 3 people currently are downrange in Clearwater, Florida, helping with the recovery post Hurricane Milton. And I did ask Mr. Tom Lampo to say a few words to pray for their safety, and I really appreciated him making a few comments about that tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Roper.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a few things that I've been up to. First off, I attended a focus group with Adams 12 administrators, the school board, particularly a few of our North Glen schools, heard about some of the amazing successes that have been happening for our schools as far as North Glen High School biomedical classes, STEM lab, integrating technology into just their everyday experiences for their students and the importance of that. Principal Volker from Stuckey also told me the success of their walking school bus and how well that has been going, and that Chief May even came and did a turn with the walking school bus. So thank you everyone who's been helping out with that. Also, in addition, we had Historic Preservation Commission this week, and we are working on updates to the property. They are looking at moving the signage so that it is not blocked so much by the trees, so it is more able for people to see. And they are gearing up and looking forward to the holiday season at the Stonehawker Farmhouse. That is always a huge tradition and really beautiful. As many of my colleagues have already said, we attended the Legacy of Tomorrow Gala, brunch with the mayor. These 2 fantastic events really we were able to showcase our beautiful new building. And thank you first and foremost to all of the staff for your hard work and countless hours that were poured into this event. We are proud of our building, but we're also so proud of the individuals who've worked tirelessly to make this a success. So thank you. In addition, please, again, my plea to educate yourself around the blueprint 5D, 5E. Again, we talked about our building being the legacy of tomorrow, but our students are truly the legacy of tomorrow. When we think about providing upgrades to safety, technology, buildings, infrastructure, that will help launch our students towards a brighter future. As an Adams 12 educator, I am extremely proud of the work that we do here, and that we have seen gains in our college and career readiness, and that we are seeing that we are setting our students up for success. In order to continue to do that, we need your support on 5D and 5E.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A few things, and definitely want to echo all of the things that my council mates have talked about, so I'll touch on that in a second. But on September 25th, it was such an amazing honor to attend the employee recognition ceremony, and we're talking a lot right now, amongst all of us about all of these events and how important it is that, we acknowledge all the work that staff does. And so this was an event where everyone was acknowledged, and there's so many incredible employees in the city of North Glen. So I was just so grateful to witness that and be a part of that, and it was so well put together. So congratulations to all that won an award, and those that didn't, you're also awesome as well. On October 1st, I attended the Cheers to the Future Adams 12 5-Star Foundation 3-year strategic plan at Prost. And it's very much in line with, the ballot initiatives 5D and 5E, all of the goals that are set forth, are all of the goals that the 5-Star Foundation is working towards as well. We don't have a future if we don't support our kids. It's that plain and clear. If we want to see a difference 10 years down the road, we have to start now with our kids. There's just no other way around it. They are the future and the foundation of our community. On October 9th, I attended the Business Retention and Expansion Committee meeting, easy for me to say, and there's just a lot of excitement right now around planning the North Glen Business Appreciation event on October 29th. As was already mentioned, planning more business walks, which is so important for us to have that face-to-face conversation with those that are providing jobs and income in our cities. It's so important to support them, so I look forward to those. And then, of course, the fun stuff with the Business Appreciation event, got to see all of the kids' centerpieces that were chosen and be a part of that selection process. I won't give it away. And the swag for the event is pretty amazing as well. So that was a really great meeting. On October 9th, I have some good news to report. I attended the NEURA meeting. We approved 2 BIG grants, which are business improvement grants, one to Nails We Care and one to Body Refinery Pilates. And then, as we were all just recently informed, NEURA did sign an agreement with 120th Washington LLC and Quanta Partners to support the redevelopment in the Washington Center. And for our residents, that's where Beltran's Meat Market is, Smashburger, Subway, CSL Plasma, and others. And we will hear more about that on October 21st during a study session. So I will leave it at that, but very exciting news in terms of the redevelopment of that center, which is much needed and we've all been calling for. I won't repeat all the great things about the SCFD cultural event. It was fun to attend that. And then, of course, proud to be a part of all of our grand opening events. And yes, many thanks and kudos to staff, because it wouldn't have happened with all that hard work. We showed up in our evening gowns and tuxedos and everything was there, but there was a lot of hard work that went into that, and police who were there taking care of us. So thank you, beautiful event. Excited to share this City Hall with our residents. It's a place for the community. So, and then as was mentioned, October 11th, presented to CML with our city attorney, Corey, but I just wanted to give him an extra thanks because his presentation to CML was excellent. And that was one of the reasons we got that 56-0 support for that bill. So thank you, Corey. And that is all I have. Thank you. Madam
Great,
Mayor.
thank you. A couple of things that are the same. So I want to start by thanking Lori Goldstein for coming. I appreciated all the comments, but specifically the fact that you took time to highlight all of the North Glen successes, all of those points of pride. It was so sweet. And I loved hearing all those specific school examples of great things that are happening in our city, even though you represent the entire school district. So thank you for that little added personal touch, because that warmed my heart quite a bit. Yes, absolutely. Thank you to city staff for all of the opening events, all of the thought that went into the final meeting on September 9th in the old building, the first meeting in this building, the opening events for our community. They were really just special, and there were so many small touches that were noticed, and we also know that so many staff members had a hand in making it a successful day. So, and I, as many of the council members have stated, I have a lot of really fond memories from the weekend. The DJ was great, the music was fun. Miles was, joking around all throughout the building. And it brought a lot of joy. I talked to so many residents that were just happy. They were excited about the building, but they were also having a really good time, and we got to spend quality time with them, so it was fun. Thank you for hosting, because it's a big deal. Quite a few of us also went to the SCFD Adams County Dinner, which really celebrates funding for the arts in our community, but also the special guests have also been scheduled to perform in the Parsons Theater. And so it's really important to highlight, we have a great treasure in our Parsons Theater, and we get really high quality talent. And they come and they bring in crowds, and it's a really special gem that we have in our city. So thank you to the Arts and Humanities Foundation, but also the staff, because they're really programming that site really well. I had a Metro Mayor's Caucus meeting, and we had yet another presentation by Front Range Passenger Rail. And again, funding is their struggle. So I'm not quite sure. There's no dates. It's, we just kind of get another overview. But that's a very expensive initiative. So no updates on that. The Finance Committee did meet, but we didn't really make a whole lot of progress. So we're going to meet again. We are talking through, council budget and what we spend our budget on. And should there be guidelines? Should there be policies? And so just a thank you to our Deputy City Manager for guiding us as a staff member through that process. His wisdom is really appreciated, so thank you. I have an upcoming CBCA board meeting on Tuesday, which is the Colorado Business Committee for the Arts, and it's just another sort of connection with Arts and Humanities Month this month. I really appreciate sitting on that board and being with businesses and artists that come together to support everyone in Colorado. I'm also looking forward to October 24th. I will be joining Habitat for Humanity and our Metro Mayors, and we build a building, and it's one of my favorite days. I wear a hard hat, I use all the tools, I climb the ladders, I do all the things. It's my favorite thing, so I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully it won't be rainy and muddy, and it'll be a beautiful day. Really quickly, I probably wasn't going to mention it, but since Councilmember Nowicki brought up 1A, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. So yes, our legislative committee did already say that this was not something that North Glen needed to weigh in on, and I appreciate that Councilmember Nowicki used our process and our policy to reach out to council to then add this conversation, which we will be having on Monday. However, it's important to note that the request from Councilmember Nowicki did get consensus, but it was a split. We don't often split, so it was a 4-5. He got the 5 from council to have Commissioner Odoricio come present, which I think is great. That was the request. However, it's come to my attention that the presentation is actually not by Commissioner Odoricio. So I wanted to see what council thought about that, because the 5 that had said, yes, we want to hear from Councilmember Odoricio, the presentation looks like it's quite a few slides from the Rocky Mountain Partnership. So can we get some clarification from City Manager, but I'd also like to hear from council on that.
Certainly, Mayor. The draft presentation that I received, well, I should say presentation that I reviewed this morning, is compiled by Rocky Mountain Partnership and includes presenters, both the commissioner and Ashley Ettinger with Rocky Mountain Partnership. I did provide Jody Nowicki quite a bit of feedback this morning in terms of the slide presentation that I reviewed, and what I would describe as some assumptions or presumptions made regarding the city's role relative to this topic, and specifically the Urban Renewal Authority's position on residential projects. So Jody responded earlier today, and they've received that feedback and indicated that they're making adjustments to their presentation.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see Commissioner Odoricio's name on the slide, so.
It was not.
Okay, did they?
Jody Nowicki mentioned to me earlier this evening before her presentation that Commissioner Odoricio would be presenting as well.
Got it. I just wanted to make sure it was in line with the request. Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I would just like this to remain neutral if we are going to be presented to I don't want any kind of communications in a positive or negative way. And I think having a third party present it from a comms perspective feels like there's an agenda versus somebody who is the commissioner coming and presenting facts only. That is what I would feel comfortable with. Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Roper?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I would agree. I think when this came to council, it was that Commissioner Odoricio was going to present to us, and it was really based in fact to provide us information. And we know that housing is an issue for our community, and I think I can speak for myself. I was looking for just factual-based evidence or information in that piece. And I will leave it at that for the moment.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To answer the question about NURA, I do sit on that board, and to my knowledge, there has not been any communication or any questions to the NURA board. I sit on that board, and that I have not seen anything to that effect. And to clarify for the public, the legislative committee took the position of just no position. We just believed it was something for the voters. It's a sales tax increase, and so therefore we were just remaining neutral on that. So I would have to agree very wholeheartedly with Councilmember Burns is that I think it's very important that this be neutral, because I don't think that we should be used as a platform to lobby for an initiative in this regard, although we do support initiatives, but we decided to remain neutral. That's neither here nor there. And so I will leave it at that I absolutely agree. It has to just be a neutral presentation. Thank you.
So I think in my communications, I just wanted to highlight that the request was one thing, and I would love it if that is what is honored. So, I mean, I guess if Commissioner Odoricio chooses to present someone else's slides, I think that's his choice, but the request was to have him here.
Okay. Rocky Mountain Partnership was here a few minutes ago, so I will follow. It looks like they've left. I will follow up with Jody tomorrow and make sure she's aware of this clarification from council in terms of the direction, and that the slide presentation is appropriate.
Great, thank you. City Clerk Small, sorry, Councilmember Nowicki?
Yeah, I did just want to clarify that when I had talked with Commissioner Odoricio, he had kind of reiterated I think the questions that the Legislative Council had raised, and I said, okay, sure. I think that's great. So the impression I got was that he would be here. And I did tell him just the facts, ma'am, which I don't know if anybody actually remembers that reference, but that's what I said to him. So I do also want to disclose that Jody Nowicki, you may have noticed that we share the same last name because she is my wife. Now, I feel this is important to disclose because I want the issue of transparency is important. I think should be important in city government. Housing is, all of this is to say that we are separate entities. I am acting as Ward 2 representative, and she is acting on her own accord. We just happen to kind of, I guess, kind of be on similar issues here. All that is to say, housing was an important thing that I ran on. I do think housing affordability in the region, especially when it comes to rent, is an important issue. And anything we can do to support, especially if it's local issues, things where we can support, so that the city doesn't, so that the state doesn't have to come in and take action. I think anything we can do to support that would be helpful. So again, I look forward to kind of that discussion. I know this has been a bit contentious, but I also appreciate that, kind of exploring some of these things together with my fellow council members and hearing their perspectives. So thank you.
Great, thank you. City Clerk Small, any updates tonight?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have two quick items. The first is that the City Clerk's office will be hosting a Passport Saturday event on October 19th. This will be our fourth Passport Saturday event of the year. The previous ones have also kicked off our donation drives to benefit local food banks or resource centers. With this fourth event, we have decided to accept donations that will benefit the pets, soon-to-be pets that are waiting to be adopted out of the Riverdale Animal Shelter. So there's information online. If customers bring in a donation, they receive a free passport photo. However, you do not need to be a customer in order to drop off donations. All donations are welcome, and there is a list of donations and items that the shelter can use on the city's website. The second item is just a reminder. I'm sure a lot of folks are aware that ballots were mailed out by the county on Friday, October 11th. If anyone does not receive their ballot by October 18th, they should call the Adams County Election Department. Their phone number is 720-523-6500. Another reminder that the 24-hour drop-off ballot box on our civic campus here is now located in the old Recreation Center parking lot, which is just north of the Veterans Memorial on the west side of Community Center Drive, to help everybody find that large white box. And then the first phase of the voter service and polling centers will be open on October 21st. And those are handy if voters need to register to vote in person, obtain a replacement ballot, or use an accessible voting machine. And that's all I have, so thank you.
Great, thank you. City Manager Guyer?
Thank you, Mayor. 2 updates for council this evening. The first is that our Deputy City Manager, Jason Loveland, has spoken with CGI, who is the company that provided the Showcase Banner program. And they will be working together to finalize amounts for reimbursement this week. CGI has requested that the city provide the reimbursements, the financial reimbursements directly to our businesses. That removes CGI from that administrative task. So we agreed to that. We will be drafting a letter by the end of the week, as well as Public Works will be the operational arm within the city that will remove those banners. However, all of that timing will be synchronized based on notification of businesses, which hopefully we can do via email. So I wanted to let council know that that process is underway based on council direction last week. The other piece in follow-up to last week's conversation with council includes the demonstration garden. Resource Central has agreed to the new location at E.B. Raines Park with the square footage that was proposed. So we don't need to increase that square footage above the 2,500 square feet that we had discussed. Staff is going to start removal of the turf in that new location this week, along with transplanting the plants from the Fox Run location. I will be out of town starting on Wednesday, returning late on October 25th. Therefore, any additional updates in terms of the progress we're making on the demonstration garden, Deputy City Manager Loveland will provide to you via email. Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney Hoffman?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. As Councilmember Burns indicated, Mayor Pro Tem Lukman Haramasa indicated, I did go to the CML Policy Committee meeting on Friday and presented on Northglen's behalf, and I certainly appreciate the kind words, but frankly, this was about a community that mobilized and council that mobilized, and I was honored to be the one to deliver the message on Northglen's behalf to the CML Policy Committee. And so we have a lot of work to do, but I hope to do everything I can to honor the direction this community and you all started with the mobilization this spring. That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, next up, the financial report. Our Deputy City Manager Loveland will present this report to council. Welcome.
I lost track of time. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. The August 2024 financial report is in front of you, and I'll just kind of fly through some of the pages, highlighting some key areas so we can get on to the budget later on. So through August, sales and use tax is up 4.3% compared to the previous year. The prior year was up 3.3%, so pretty consistent the last couple of years. Within that number, auto use tax is down 8.5%. For reference, the prior year is up 8.9%, so we're kind of netted to nothing at this point. Sales tax is up 5.9%, food tax up 6.6%, and then the marijuana tax is down slightly over 9%. The marijuana tax continues its trend downward. It was actually down 12% at this time last year, so 20 to 25% reduction over a compounding 2-year period is probably things that you've seen on the news. And what's going on kind of statewide in Colorado with that industry. So we'll continue to monitor that, but it continues to trend downward. Skipping ahead to the general fund revenues on page 2. Those totaled $24.5 million, which is actually up 9% or $2 million compared to the previous year. Again, property tax, sales tax are doing well. Really, the entire tax category is up, again, 9%, which is positive for the community. Other revenues, I won't dive into those, but you can see the increases mostly across the board for general fund revenues. Skipping ahead to the general fund expenditures on page 3. Total expenditures are at $25.5 million. This is up $3.9 million or 17% over the prior year. Operationally, if we kind of go up one line or two lines, you'll see that the operating side of things were up 14%. The budget was up and projected to be up about 6%. So our spending is a little bit ahead of pace compared to the last year. However, we've had a lot of vacancies that we're going to start over the whole meeting. The vacancies that we had seen in 2023 are not occurring in 2024. So we're more fully staffed, and across the board, across all the funds and departments, you'll see spending is higher than the prior year. The majority of that, anywhere from 10 to 15% of that increased spending, is personnel related. So being fully staffed really makes a difference on one of our largest expenditure categories, which is personnel. On page 4, in the water funds, total revenues of $9.5 million and expenditures of $14.8 million. Kind of the highlight on the water fund, honestly, is that consumption is up 20% through August. Last year it was down 25%, so we're really just kind of getting back to what I'd say probably is a more normal season, although it's been a little bit dry. But we've seen a lot of gains there with the water charges up 21%. Let's see. Kind of on the expenditure side, you'll see on the operation side of $5 million. That's up about 18%. Again, majority of that's personnel related. Capital outlay you'll see is down, and that's just one-time expenditures that you can see more detail on starting on page 19, where we break out the capital projects. In the wastewater fund, total revenues are just over $4 million and expenditures of $2.5 million. Wastewater revenues are up 6% in total, with wastewater charges being up 7%. Again, expenditures are in line with what we would expect this time of year. On the operating side, being about 42% of operational expenditures, they're typically around anywhere between 40 and 45%, so we're right on track in that fund. The next fund, the stormwater fund on page 6, total revenues of $316,000, expenditures of $117,000. Stormwater charges are down about 4.5%. And really that's a function of just the timing of our billing cycles. There's no changes in activity as far as rates or whatnot, so we'll expect that number to creep closer to flat as the year goes on. And then the last fund on page 7, the sanitation fund, total revenues of just under 1.3 million and total expenditures of just under 1.2. Sanitation revenues are up 2.5% compared to the prior year. You'll see recycling revenue is up about 34%. We've been tracking the baggage fee, which is about 26,000 of that. So the majority of that increase year over year is found there. That is all I have for the funds. Then I can touch on a couple of other items. Cash and investments on page 8. You'll see at the end of August, that total was $80.1 million. At the end of August 2023, that number was $103 million. So as we talk about capital projects and improvements, this building being one of them, you'll note that the capital projects fund cash at the end of August of 2024 was $19.7 million. In 2023, that was $44.1 million. So the reduction, as you can see in that line graph, is attributable to the cash reserves being spent on this project specifically. Skipping ahead to page 11, tax collected by a geographic code. So this is kind of what we're doing within the boundaries, less the very first line, which is out of state, otherwise kind of our online sales. Online sales are leading the charge, up 13%. Last year at this time, they were up 6%, so they are continuing to trend and grow. Online sales aren't going anywhere, which is fantastic. And then you can see the various locations and how they're doing throughout the city. Total, when we include the out-of-state areas taxes, we're up 7.6%, kind of in that geographic code. Last year at this time, we were up 0%, so being up over 7.5% is quite an accomplishment for the community. That is all I have for the August report. Happy to answer any questions if you have some.
Councilmember Kondo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Deputy City Manager. I have two questions. The first really going back to slide 3 or page 3. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the page numbers here at the very bottom of the report. Page 7 in the PowerPoint, in the PDF file. So I'm just curious. I mean, I heard earlier that the Finance Committee met and had a conversation about legislative spending, and I'm just looking at this. By my math, it looks like through August of this year, the budget would have had about $651K, and we've only spent about $585K. So we're about $66K underspent. I'm curious as to what is causing some of the concern here in terms of the legislative spend.
What page are you on? I'm sorry, I'm not following.
Page 7 in the PDF.
Page 3, okay.
AKA page 3, General Fund Expenditure Report.
Okay. Sorry, I was not there. Okay, legislative spending, the 585,000.
Yep.
Today.
So I just did my math, right? I did 2/3 of 982K. It comes out to about 651. So that should be our burn rate through August, end of August this year. And we've only spent about 585. So we're actually underspent by about 66K. And I just want to understand what's causing the concern about legislative spend.
I mean, I think that's a question probably for the Finance Committee, not for our Deputy City Manager. And I would just invite you to come to the next Finance Committee meeting and hear the discussion. We're going to bring it back to council, but it's important to know for anyone who's watching that the legislative budget includes a ton of things. It's not just about council apparel or travel. It's about ward meetings, the cost of those, the food, trying to make sure that we have policies or guidelines or something that provides, equity is not the word, but it might be. I mean, when we're talking about if Ward 1 has crackers and cheese, but Ward 4 goes to Cinzetti's, does that make sense, right? And so should we have some policies around that? And so please join us at the next Finance Committee. They're open.
Thank you, Mayor. I will take you up on that invite. I hope it doesn't turn into a food fight. I do have a follow-up question, though, however. So hopefully I'm going to point you to the right page here in the PDF. It would be page 7, AKA page 11 in your PDF regarding the sanitation fund. Not expecting an answer, but I know that we, at one point or another, looked at waste optimization. I'm just wondering, are you seeing any increases in the amount the city is spending to take our, to take our waste to the landfill or recycling centers? And is that something that might be an expense, a growing expense that we will have to reckon with going forward?
So there definitely is an increased landfill cost. That's one of the package requests for the 2025 budget is to increase basically the contract amount for that. So that will be indeed something. Fuel costs and those disposal fees are trending upward for sure.
And City Manager Guy, is waste optimization, is that something that is on our radar in the midterm?
Yes, Councilmember Kondo, that was raised as an idea in the strategic plan. So even though it was put on hold by council, I believe last year, pre-election in November, this item will come back to council. I don't recall off the top of my head if it's next year or if it's 2026, but it is included in the draft strategic plan that will come before council on November 4th.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands, so thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Please open the vote. Please vote.
Hi, yes, I vote in favor because I got logged out, so I'm logging back in.
I will close that vote, and the consent agenda passes unanimously.
Great, we have a public hearing tonight. It is the proposed 2025 annual operating and capital improvement budget. Our Deputy City Manager, Jason Loveland, will provide a presentation of the proposed 2025 budget. I will now open the public hearing on the proposed 2025 annual operating and capital improvement budget. Is there anyone who would like to speak either for or against the proposed 2025 budget? Is there anyone on the phone who would like to speak about the budget? You can unmute by pressing *6. Yeah, come on up.
Thank you for hearing me, and I know several of you, and Mr. Kondo, thank you for the email that I haven't responded to for 8 months, but thank you. You directed all of my interest, and I appreciate you doing that.
Excuse me, ma'am, just for the record, can you provide your name and address and then provide your comments?
My name's Diane Gussman. I live at 11735 Elate Court in North Glen.
Thank you.
So I've been talking to Heather for several years, and she gave me, a couple months ago, we were in front of the water place over there, and she gave me this proposal that you guys are fixing to consider in this budget, and it's regarding the Huron Crossing Park in Huron Crossing. And I know most of you've seen pictures, and I have pictures, and this proposal indicates a fence on the north side, which is this side of this basketball post.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason that I have been inquiring with you guys for so long is because it's so dangerous. The basketball hits the hoop and goes out over the bank and into the street. And kids chase their balls. Everybody chases their balls. We've got tons of new commercial vehicles in the neighborhood, Amazon, RTD, the school buses, all of that. And so Heather was telling me that, I don't know, some company came up with some ideas. I don't know how exactly they fit into all this, but to put that on the north side, and I'm appreciative of that, Heather, that you've come up with something. My concern is still that aesthetically, this post would look so much better to me aesthetically on the other side, which is back here, and it's away from the street completely, and the fence, I'm not sure what kind of fence it's going to be. I don't know if aesthetically it's going to, because this is a great park. It's a wonderful, wonderful park. So I'm asking you to consider placing this post on the back side of this so people don't chase the balls, because even if you put a fence up there, people that are sitting up on the top of the park watching their children play and playing basketball are constantly on guard about probably seeing their child chase the ball out in the street. In this area, it won't be. It'll just hit the bank and roll right back down to the court. Anyway, that's about all I have. Makes me nervous to be here, but I appreciate whatever you guys decide to do, but I'm hoping that you'll change your thinking and put it on the other side. And thank you, Heather, for all of your endurance with me, and the other ones too. All right, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
So as a part of the public hearing, I'm now going to invite Deputy City Manager Jason Loveland back to the podium. And I'm going to turn my microphone on. Welcome back.
Hello, and thank you. All right. There's a presentation. Ta-da! You just have to call for it, I think. That's how that works. So thank you for having me, and this is obviously a very important document and consideration that we have for policy and organizationally and for the community. So I want to start off, really just going over some high-level areas of focus. I know that I put like a 230-page packet together for you all. Really, the point of that is to really kind of take it at a very high level, and then as folks need and desire to drill down into more details, to identify, line items by department or division, that opportunity is there. That is not what we're going to go through tonight. We're not going to go through a couple hundred pages, but really take kind of a high-level look at the budget for 2025. this slide is probably the key slide, the fund summaries. So these are actually the total amounts on the right-hand column, 2025 proposed budget. Those are the appropriations that would be being requested by council to adopt. So there's hundreds of pages of information, and really it comes down to what is adopted is, these handful of lines by fund. So the total budget proposed of $85.9 million. Operationally, the general fund that handles the majority of, I think, what people recognize: public safety, parks and recreation and culture, our streets, snow removal, and things of that nature, are made up and paid for out of the general fund, which has a budget of $39.3 million. About 70% of the budget is categorized into those three groups that I just mentioned. So the majority of the budget of that $39 million is associated with staffing and those operations. These slides are information that you viewed on September 9th, so I'm not going to dwell too heavily on these, but you can see in the general fund proposed budget total revenues of $37.6 million. And you can see on the expenditure side, 39.3. Again, you can see the line for personnel being just under $28 million. So the majority of the general fund goes to personnel and the people that make the city tick. The 5-year forecast that we've prepared here, you can see at the bottom, we'll identify the net change in fund balance and then the percentage fund balance as we go forward for a few years. Again, on an annual basis, we make decisions about the budget. These are forecasts. These are conservative revenue forecasts, and then conservative expenditure forecasts, in a sense, conservative that they're going to grow at a faster rate than revenues, just to kind of keep us kind of within some guardrails as we imagine our future and what those might look like. So every year an annual appropriation is done. This is by no means says that this is what's going to happen, but it is kind of an indicator to just be that little reminder that, hey, we do need to pay attention to kind of our spending and our revenues and have some awareness. So you'll see some notes for consideration, within that 5-year plan. I think one of the biggest items is that last item, the $1 million transfer to capital projects based off of the ballot language that was approved last year, to really make sure that we're investing in roads and park amenities and making sure that that revenue that's coming into the general fund is being transferred out and used for those things specifically. I think that's the vision of the council, vision of the community, and so we definitely want to, underscore that as something in the future, starting in 2026, that we'll focus on. Here in the general fund balance, you can see that's really just a snippet out of the numbers that I just showed you on the last page, and you can see, the minimum required is our 25%. Which is 3% of the TABOR, and then 22% of our own operating reserve requirement that we've placed on ourselves, and then the amount that's available as those years extend. You'll notice that a couple of numbers are dropped off on a couple of columns, but that's what happens when you transfer data into 10 different styles. So. Moving past the general fund, unless there's any questions on the general fund specifically, we can stop and chat. Okay. Conservation Trust Fund, these are lottery proceed revenues, is categorized as intergovernmental in accounting standards. $485,000, the $40,000 of other revenue, that's mainly interest earnings. And then capital outlay, $851,000. We'll get to the capital project detail later on, but this fund specifically pays for parks and recreation capital projects. Another big fund, the Capital Projects Fund, Total revenues of $9.1 million and expenditures of 15.9. We'll take a look at those as well. Major thing here, the tax revenue, $6.7 million. Same estimate and forecast as in the general fund as far as growing 3% 1 year over the next. In the water fund, you'll see here $15 million of revenue, pretty consistent with the forecast year end. I did not try to predict the weather and assume that it was going to be a dry or wet 2025. So this is just steady revenue assumptions based off of historical data. Expenditures of $17.6 million. And as we've touched on before, the majority of that spending in this fund is capital outlay. And you'll see those projects later on. In the wastewater fund, $6.8 million of revenue, total expenditures of $8.3 million. Again, in alignment with capital outlay and then personnel costs, also some debt service in the wastewater fund. Stormwater fund, just over $2 million, $514,000 of revenue, expenditures of about $1.4 million. A large capital outlay project, which is actually a study that's going to lead to some capital outlay. So that project's ongoing and currently happening. We're expecting the majority of that to be paid for in 2025, unless in the last couple of months we get a big invoice for the work that's been done. But we'll carry that over and reconcile it as necessary. But we do have that study happening right now. And then in the sanitation fund, revenues of just over $2 million and expenditures of $2.5 million. Capital outlay, buying and replacing vehicles, a big operation for those vehicles. You can see $674,000 budgeted for 2025. Big picture revenues. Left-hand column, you can see the tax revenue, as I mentioned, fairly flat from 1 year to the next, 24 being the green column and 25 being the proposed budget. User charges and fees, that is our water and wastewater charges, sanitation charges, and then our recreation center fees. So you can see collecting just over $20 million in that category. Here I touch on this, sales and use tax growth about 3%. We'll continue to update if necessary any information on the property tax mill levy rate. We shouldn't expect to see anything until December 10th when we get the final assessed valuation. So I don't expect us to need to make a budget adjustment based off of any of the property tax information. That happened last year. It had an impact of a few $100,000 that we didn't modify our budget to. So I would imagine this year, if there's any changes, we'll just assume that those are going to stay flat from 2024. Here you can see the sales tax growth, expectations for 24 and 25. Next, the key revenues. Again, water and wastewater increases that were part of our 10-year plan from 2023 through 2027. It's kind of the last 5 years. I haven't seen this presentation on these screens, so I'm kind of laughing at what the chart looks like. I don't think it looks like that on your computer, but that is kind of funny. We'll skip that one and move ahead to personnel. As you can see there, regular wages growing, medical benefits as well, retirement contributions. Touched on this, I think since August 5th, honestly, market adjustments. You can see those two bullet points for our sworn and non-sworn staff of 2% and 3% respectively, and then merit pay, again, non-sworn, and sworn folks that are not in a step plan receiving 3%, and then officers or sergeants, if they're within a step plan, what those increases would be as well. Pretty significant note from a staffing perspective, no new positions were being requested or proposed to council, so we're going to hang tight with the staffing that we have. We have, like I mentioned in the August financial report, we have a lot of positions filled, and we're going to maintain that and work with the staff that we have and navigate that through 2025. Here's a breakdown of the capital projects by fund. Again, the largest area in the capital projects fund of $11.7 million. So you can see a large, of the $85 million in the budget, you can see a large contingent of that is supported in capital projects. Here's the detail of the Conservation Trust Fund budget, the various playground replacements and park improvements that we have slated for 2025 throughout the community. I won't go through all of these capital projects, but the several that make up the capital projects fund in 2025. The first one there, you'll see the Odell Berry Park. There's a $3.5 million funding gap. So in 2025, while there's a $1.7 million budget, we're not expecting to actually spend any of that next year until we have a chance to accumulate dollars to actually execute the project. E.B. Raines Jr. Memorial Park renovations, $1.5 million. Big, huge, amazing project going on over there that we're really looking forward to in 2025. I think another big one is the residential street overlay program. We were able to, I think we had initially talked about $950,000. We'll have some additional savings this year in 2024 that will carry over to increase that number to a little over $1.1 million. And then in the 5-year planning, we've increased that to $1.5 million, which I think is more consistent with the PCI rating that we were striving for and maintaining or narrowing that gap to reach our goal there. So definitely excited about the opportunity there with the residential street program. And then here we have the water fund, big project over at Northwest Open Space, the Aquifer Storage and Recovery project, $5 million budgeted in 2025. Getting water to our wastewater plant out at Section 36, or fresh clean water. We do have water there already, but new fresh clean water will be a large project happening that helps our wastewater plant to operate, but it is a water fund project. And then on the wastewater fund, collection system rehabilitation, there's a lot of lines that run all over the place, and we have to maintain them and care for them. So while it's not super sexy, it's a big, huge, important project that we need to invest in for the community. So $1.2 million invested on that project. And then I mentioned the stormwater project, this being more of a study that's going to lead to future conversations and guide us with future investment in our stormwater system. Long-term obligations, you'll see up here on the screen, breaking that out. So these will be balances January 1st, 2025. We'll make our big principal and interest payment the 1st of December, 2024. But you can see what will be outstanding as far as long-term obligations for the city. On the right-hand side, those are the annual payments for 2025. So our next conversation about this will be October 28th, where we'll present council the opportunity to adopt said budget. And then also just to reiterate, as we go through the strategic plan over the next couple of months and identify some of the things in the budget. In Q1 of 2025, we'll all touch base again to navigate and prioritize and organize our thoughts on how we accomplish those. So happy to answer any questions.
Great. Councilmember Kondo?
Madam Mayor, thank you, Deputy City Manager, Finance Director. Thank you. Appreciate that. It's a team support. Work here. Thank you for answering my email earlier today about the Conservation Trust Fund. It actually prompts me to think about, and I don't know if you want to share contextually what we talked about, but when you look at slide 12, the Conservation Trust Fund reserve balance or fund balance will drop down to $96K. And so my question to Jason was, what happens if it goes into the red? Should it go into the red? What do you do? And Jason, what's the answer?
And the answer is that it shouldn't go into the red. This fund is kind of built as a pay-as-you-go capital projects funding source. So it's one of those things that if we were not going to have enough money to do a project or a portion of a project, we just simply would not do the project. So.
Does the same rubric apply to some of the other buckets of money, whether it's the water fund, wastewater, stormwater, sanitation?
So conceptually, yeah, we would be unable to budget beyond our means.
Okay, so there's no interfund transfer that you can do or anything like that?
We could take out loans to ourselves. That happens in organizations sometimes.
Can we do that?
Could we?
Yeah.
Or would we?
Is it something that we've done or we do routinely?
In the history of the city, I believe that there has been governmental loans to one fund to another. In my 15 years, we haven't done that. That
Gotcha.
would not be a recommendation on my part to focus on or
Understand.
to plan and strategize for.
And my intent is not to put you on the spot, but I figured for the purposes of the public who may be listening or tuning in at some point or another, it's probably a good question. And then on slide 18, I just want to make sure contextually I understand what's going on with the intergovernmental revenues. So, obviously 2023, I guess, and 24 is the end of ARPA. So as we move forward into the future, 25, 26, should we pretty much assume that that's going to just plateau out and be somewhere around the $5 million mark?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Those spikes were one time in nature. And so we'll expect that to level down to, in the general fund, drop down to about $2.3 million, which that shows all of the revenues, not just in the general fund, but for instance, we were hovering like $3 million in 2023 in the general fund, and we're expecting that number to be about $2 million in 2025 and most likely beyond.
Okay.
So.
And I see a similar sort of profile in other revenue as well. Is that something we should also keep in the back of our minds that, that's going to plateau to about sub 2.5, 2 million?
Yep. Yes, we should.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to slide 20, I'm just curious. So this one shows sales tax going up over time. I just did the math real quick. A 5-year CAGR is about 7.6%. From 23 to 24, that's about a 5.6% year over year. I'm just curious, how did you land at using 3% as a sales tax growth to project 2025 revenue?
Yeah, so that's a conservative estimate, taking kind of where we're trending right now, being up over 7.5%, and really taking a look back over the last several years of just kind of leveling out kind of those troughs and those spikes, and we're somewhere honestly between 4 and 4.5%. As I mentioned, I'm taking a conservative approach on revenue assumptions, and so 3% is kind of where we landed.
Okay, thank you. Madam Mayor, one other question.
Okay.
So I'm looking at slide 33, and I just added up our annual payments, so that's about $5.6 million. that we'll owe on these long-term obligations. I wonder if, just to help me and maybe the public understand, where do you find that 5.6 million payment coming out of?
Oh, sure. So I'll start with the small one first, the wastewater revenue bonds.
Yeah,
So that
I
one-
guess they would be distributed, right? So the wastewater bond fund would come out of wastewater
Correct.
fund?
Yeah, so the wastewater revenue bonds are being paid for by user charges and fees out of the wastewater fund. The Civic Campus COP and the Justice Center COP are both being paid out of the Capital Projects Fund, and they're being paid for by the 0.5% sales tax that's dedicated or restricted by voters for capital projects within the Capital Projects Fund, and then also the 0.5% or the special 4% special marijuana tax.
Gotcha.
So
Thanks.
those both, all three of those have specific allocations and distributions of revenue outside of the general fund.
Thank you for pointing that out. And yeah, I just found it and did the math and checks, so appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Councilmember Kondo, I was thinking about your question earlier, and I wanted to highlight slide 10 and 11, the 5-year forecast, and a couple of things came to mind. So there has been in the past a pretty fiscally conservative approach, which put us in a really good position during COVID, especially our peers, our colleagues around the state and the country for that matter. Not everyone was set up to sort of survive and thrive during COVID. It wasn't perfect, but we were in a much better place. So when I look at these trends going down to 29%, and it's also a nice, just simple bar graph on the next slide. Even though the legislative budget is a very small piece of this pie, taking a look at our spending, I think, is our sort of part in possibly tightening the belt in the future. There's things you can look, we're going to have to likely tighten. We can't just continue to spend into the future. We will eventually run out of money. So we're going to have a conversation. And so I think if we do our own part, we can model that for the other departments and say, hey, we're not just spending money willy-nilly. We're also paying attention to what we're spending and making sure that the value matches what we're putting out. So that's sort of where the conversation started. But I think as we look at these, we can't continue on this trek. We will eventually be dry. And so we may need to go back when we think about just expenses just last week, right? We had to spend quite a bit of money and we had it, and that was good. And so our police department will have what they need to communicate and do everything that is going to do. But I just feel like we need to have a little bit of a fund balance for those moments, and we're going to have to take a look at that. So that's just what I was thinking when we got to that slide. So, yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For sure, I am not a proponent of spending our fund balance down to zero.
Yeah.
But I do know that we do have residents that are very sensitive, I guess, if you will, about that. And that's the reason why I'm here and I'm asking very good questions, I hope. I don't know. Maybe my questions are not good questions. But I do not disagree with you by any shred that we need to lead by example. But I also agree, and I've heard this day speak on other occasions, that we may have to make some trade-off decisions. Whether it's, are we going to add Oktoberfest for events? Well, we need to make a tough decision as to what's going to fall off, because we cannot continue to pile more and more and expect that we can do that when obviously our FTE headcount is going to stay flat for next year. And you're right. I am trying to anticipate perhaps maybe a future where the economy is not so rosy, and we need to have some reserve in case of some untoward event, like, for example, a tornado. Highlands Ranch, now granted, they're not a city, but they're a special district. They had a very healthy fund balance, and they were able to survive a tornado, force majeure, act of God. But because they had that buffer, they were able to make it through. And that's kind of where I sit, Madam Mayor, is I just want to make sure that we're being really judicious with the taxpayer dollar.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from council? Thank you.
Thank you so
Hearing
much.
none, I will close the public hearing. Resolution CR 157. Will the clerk please read the title?
A resolution supporting Adams 12 five-star schools, ballot issues 5D and 5E. Move for approval.
Second.
So, this resolution was requested by City Council and the Legislative Policy Committee. Is there any discussion? Okay, please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I will close that vote, and CR 157 passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, we have a discussion item tonight, regulation of household pets. All right, come on down. Police Commander Peter Bryce is going to talk about this.
Evening, Madam Mayor, Council. Yeah. Okay, the police department was tasked with doing some homework on, it was brought forward as far as whether or not we want to cap the amount of pets we have or that we allow, dogs and cats combined, either or. So our animal control, one of the young ladies is sitting right behind me, Cheyenne, and her partner, Melissa, did a lot of homework on this. Melissa is happily at home with her brand new baby, so she's not joining us here tonight. But Cheyenne is here just in case you all have some questions that go out of the area of expertise of mine with dogs and cats. Oops, sorry. So we did have, in 73, we used to have an ordinance that capped things. 84, it was repealed. And I'll be honest, I wasn't working that day. I have no idea why we chose to repeal it. That was a while ago. Corey, no? You don't know?
Not that old.
I don't know why it was, I don't know why it was repealed. But some folks have brought this forward to us. That's our current municipal code that says that we don't have a limitation on everything. So right now for our animal control and the calls for service, and we'll get into the data here, is driven, or it's complaint driven, right? Whether it's the folks not cleaning up after the dogs, and they have too many in the backyard, and you have multiple dogs barking, or as examples. So our animal control officers did lots of homework, and the majority of, we're essentially it that doesn't in the surrounding areas and our neighboring jurisdictions. Most cap it between 3 and 4, and it's typically a combination of the two. Here's a chart. As you can see, a lot of the data is typically below 4 total pets. And again, we're talking cats and dogs primarily, right? We're not snakes and getting into all of that stuff. We're in the dogs and cats. You can see you have a couple outliers that allow a little bit higher number, but for the most part, it's 4, if not 3, a combination of the two. Now, the licensing, some get into that as far as the, whether or not you have to have them licensed. Again, we did homework on that. Our closest neighbors, Thornton Westy, essentially most in the 17th Judicial don't require pet licenses. As you can see, the next slide, there are some that do. However, the majority of them, if the police department, certainly that would be extremely difficult for us to take on. All of those agencies, and I'm assuming it would be the same for City Hall right now with everything that we have going on to require licensing. These agencies use City Hall for that to just do the normal permitting and requirement stuff. That's a pretty heavy lift right now, which is, I think the focus was to just see whether or not you folks want to look at capping the amount of pets and start there. And if you wanted to revisit things down the road, again, that's up to you folks. The shelter that Councilman Kondo went out and, right, as you can see that they're upticking stuff with the amount of animals that they tend or that they have to tend to. They also, they deal with licensing, but it's from an unincorporated aspect, right? Not taking on all the municipalities too. So that's a pretty heavy lift if that is something that you want to get into down the road. And it kind of mirrors whether or not it's cats and dogs as far as the licensing. And I think there were only 2 agencies that didn't use City Hall to collect all the fees and do all the requirements for maintaining all the data on who has them, who hasn't, and registering the new ones. So the goal, right, if we can start to limit some of the stuff or limit the amount that they have, you would naturally equate that less things, less problems, it's under maintained. And as of right now, the only thing that, as we said, it's either a sanitary issue, but it's complaint driven, right? The neighbors have called in if there is, and it falls more on dogs out in the backyard where there's too many, and then you start to get odors and barking dog complaints. As there are calls for service, Cheyenne, if you, just in case I speak out of turn, the animal complaint general that's just a code through dispatch. That's why that number looks so incredibly high. That's essentially, it's a catch-all for all of our calls for service. And our, as it says in the memo, our animal control also, remember, they manage our vehicles on the streets too, whether it's the abandoned vehicles or license plate issues. So they're trying to manage that on top of all of the animal complaints in the city. These are some of the citations that we've written. Typically, our animals at large are our biggest citation. And again, stemming from typically that's a call for service that our folks would get, having us respond to that one. So here are our options, or I should say your options, that we can mull over. You can obviously make no changes, keep things as they are. Like I said, just understand that through all of our homework, our city's kind of the outlier in not having any sort of limitations on everything. We can authorize us to start to limit the numbers, whatever that number is that you come up with. Obviously, then we have to get an ordinance passed. We'd have to work with Corey as far as how many, what combination, whether or not you want to get into that and licensing, or just passed the ordinance for the licensing. Questions? I know I was cruising through that, but.
That's okay. Can you go back to page 11? Because my first question is,
Which one's 11, ma'am?
we're going to get there. Keep going. Right there.
Cats?
That one. So my question is this your cat? I actually was seriously wondering who put the images in here because that one made me laugh.
I would love to take credit for the photos in the slides. Cheyenne, do you want to take?
Who found these photos?
So I guess I'd have to do my homework, ma'am, and find out.
I don't know. Whoever did.
How they got him to sit still with a tiara on its head, or
Well,
whatever.
it provided humor at the end of the evening, so thank
Yes.
you. And we have almost everyone's hand up, so get ready. Councilmember Nowicki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Commander Rice.
Yeah.
Cheyenne, thank you for being here. Just a few questions, and then I'll kind of throw out my thoughts to kind of prompt the discussion as both a dog and cat owner. So I just want to kind of go back to the licensing, specifically for dogs. It sounds like kind of, and again, I'm going to kind of elicit or seek your opinion here. It sounds like you kind of shared it, that it would be challenging to kind of do that process, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Then I guess that was really only my question. I would be in favor of kind of having some sort of restriction, around possibly having 3 dogs, maybe 3 cats, and for a total of 3 or 4. So, but thank you very much for this work. It was really informative, and I appreciate y'all looking into this.
Welcome.
Councilmember Goff?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you as well for coming in here this evening and sitting through all our other meeting to talk about this. So I didn't make the deadline to ask this ahead of time, so you may not know the answer. But I was just curious, the trend for complaints seems to be dropping over years, and I was just wondering if it had something to do with people being home during the pandemic and maybe hearing dogs or pets and complaining about it, and since people are now going back to work more, there's less. I don't know if you have any idea or sense of it continuing to drop.
Well, I think, and I don't, you forgive me if I'm trying to find the slide. So if you're looking at 2024 and the numbers, right? If it's down, we're also still only in October.
Oh, right. That's true.
So I'm not trying to.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering.
For more calls that has come, but we also haven't gotten to the end of the year, so there's a pretty strong likelihood that Ms. Cheyenne behind me will be busy and she'll continue to get more complaints as the year goes on.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good point. It sort of looked like there was it was trending downwards, so I wondered. I think my sense of this is that the licensing thing sounds like a lot more work and expense than we're going to get a positive response from, I think. But I would like to look into some kind of limit on the number of pets. And again, most of this is going to be complaint driven, but at least in that case, we're giving our residents an idea up front that we do have a limit. And then if it turns out that the complaints take you to somebody who has way too many, we have some recourse there too as well.
Correct. It allows us then to enforce something.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. That's my sense of what my recommendation.
And to go off of that, and again, Cheyenne, when there are people that are with prior complaints, right? So we've talked about what if you say you already have 5 and you folks come up with 4, right? There can be time limits, and this is stuff that we would have to talk through with Corey's team for people that have been cited for previous violations. Then we would have to, right, then there's zero tolerance, right? And moving forward, right, they would be cited because they've already shown that they're, right? So there are things with that, because that's something that we've thought about, and we asked, all right, well, what if someone has 5 and one of the, you know, that's a tough decision for folks, right? People care about, right, what if you come up with a number and you're 1 over. So those are things to think about too. But it's complaint driven right now, right? And then so when we do get to the homes that there is a complaint, it gives us at least some way to act upon it. Hope that, if that makes some sense there. Yeah.
It does, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Kondo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'll expand on some of the numbers that I cited during council communications, and all of this is on the Riverdale Animal Shelter website. So again, this was a facility that was built nominally to be able to accommodate about 5,000 animals. So the numbers that I read off were 2023 stats, rounding up. They had taken in 6,500 animals, so that's over their capacity. And when I did the breakdown as to how many were adopted, I said 3,900. There were 2,000 animals that were returned to their owners. So it means there were 600 animals that were circulated. This is they don't like to use the term non-kill facility. They use a more euphemistic term. But this is a facility that's already over capacity. And maybe Cheyenne, you can confirm that I'm reciting the right numbers. This year they're trending to having about 7,000 animals coming in on intake. So when I listen to these numbers, I think about what you're doing here in terms of proposing a limit, and I think I'm pretty much on board where Councilmember Nowicki is. I think it's probably important that we do that we try and limit perhaps maybe the combined total cats and dogs to 4 maximum. Because the other thing that I learned is that many times these animals are not spayed or neutered. So the part of the problem is you have a lot of animals that are procreating in the neighborhoods and contributing to the problem of more animals coming in. It's like a tidal wave. Well, maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but if our county animal shelter is over capacity, I think we need to take action to do something to relieve that problem. Thank you.
Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm in agreement with a lot of my fellow council members. I think like a limit makes a lot of sense. However, I do think people need to be grandfathered in, because like I know a lot of people with like 4 Chihuahuas, which is a lot different than like 4 bulldogs or mastiffs. Like I think that is very different, and like I'm a small dog gal myself, and I think like there just I would never give up a pet like that. Like if all of a sudden we put a limit on something, like I just feel, I don't know, I think there needs to be like some kind of thought into this. I mean, Corey, I think that's you. Thank you. And yeah, that's kind of, I'm fine with setting a limit, as long as we do take people who, don't have violations against themselves, that we're not making them arbitrarily give up a pet for no reason.
Councilmember Roper.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'm in agreement with the majority of my council mates. And just even in looking at the numbers on slide 15, just the amount of citations that have been written this year have gone up as far as vicious dogs and animal at large. And I'm not sure what each condition was, but I just wonder if sometimes if people get in over their head with animals. But that is a concern that they've almost doubled. And as you said, Commander Rice, it's only October, so those are surely to go up. So I'm in agreement that probably we should put some sort of ordinance in place.
And with, like most things, right, even right when you look at the increase in patrol statistics, right, for a long time, we had 1 animal control officer, then for a while we had 2, we had more enforcement capabilities, right, we had coverage for 7 days a week. So just keep that in mind too with some of the right? For the statistic data, or when you have staff and you have more staff to actually able to enforce, that could also, push some of the data up too.
Councilmember Jaramillo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Commander Rice. And question I have is, have you received any calls is animal at large or animal complaint in general? Are any of those calls dealing with non-service animals at places of business?
As far as being at large.
That would be at large? Is that what you, and do you receive many of those calls? Or do the businesses, I feel like I've been at businesses where I've had people verbally complain about non-service animals inside of a grocery store. And the business will say, well, there's nothing we can do about it. Would that fit at animal at large or animal complaint in general? And is there anything that the city can do about that?
Well, real quick, so just so I'm, the animal at large is a lot of times being miscoded. Is that the one?
As far as in the
Should be
dispatch
animal,
officers.
yes.
Yeah.
Right, so sometimes dispatch, right, I'm not trying to beat up the dispatchers that are listening, they'll just miscode that. The majority of those, so even if it's at large, should be under animal complaint general.
Okay.
All right, so, and I learned this earlier from Cheyenne, right? So she's trying, it should be being tagged as animal complaint general.
Okay.
So you would think, though, even though it's at large, it fits the category that they have it in. I personally, in my time on the street, didn't have many, as far as what you're talking about, as far as complaints upon service animals. I can think of one, and it was in a doctor's office over on Huron. But I don't believe that it's often, at least through my history and hearing about it. Maybe Cheyenne can speak differently. I don't think that that's too common.
I have never gotten a complaint as far as an animal being in a business that is not a service animal, that they don't want there, things like that.
I'm sorry, I had a hard time hearing at the end.
Sorry, I have never had a complaint as far as a business wanting an animal removed or anything for it not being a service animal. I have had a few calls where people who have claimed their animals are service animals have caused issues in businesses, but I haven't had vice versa.
Okay, so as somebody who works in animal control, do you feel that having limitations or no limitations and trying to enforce the limitations, do you think that would make your job more difficult, or do you think it'd be easier?
I think in a lot of ways it would make it easier in terms of the call for service load would eventually decrease with our barking dogs, our unsanitary premise, those smells, the nuisance, especially cases of cruelty and neglect as well. A lot of times we see people, like you mentioned, getting in over their heads with having too many animals. So it'll help give us an additional kind of weight to apply to those situations, whereas right now with our barking dogs and our unsanitary premise, those are nuisance violations. So without a neighbor to say, hey, this is, causing a nuisance to my life, there's nothing we can really do to stop the problem. So if we have a neighbor who's not willing to testify, but it is a problem, it'll give us, again, that additional weight to be able to still do something about it. Also with a case I had recently, I think it would help decrease diseases as well. I had a case recently where backyard breeder, at least 13 adult dogs. I lost count after 13, to be honest. I don't know how many puppies he had. Recently lost 7 adult dogs and 3 puppies to parvo in a matter of 48 to 72 hours. So I think just limiting the amount of animals that people can have also limits the likelihood of them contracting disease as well.
That makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate your perspective as someone that works in the field every day. And this should be for either one of you. It's my final question.
Doing much better than I am, so I'm going to keep it right under.
She's the expert. Yeah, so do you feel we should follow suit, matching our neighboring municipalities to the east and west to be consistent?
I do think so, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
City Attorney Hoffman.
Yeah, I just wanted to answer Councilmember Harmio's question directly. There is no violation of the North Glen Municipal Code if someone brings a non-service animal into a business that would otherwise prohibit them. Having said that, I suspect the health department has specific regulations related to animals in restaurants where food is being served, but there's no municipal code provision for that addresses that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Going off of that, if an animal is causing an additional violation within a business, like if it did attack someone in a business, or if it's, running around just going crazy, that would be something that would fall under our code. However, if it's just simply the animal just being in the business and it's not doing anything wrong, that would be a civil matter for the business just being able to refuse someone's service at that point.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Commander, and thank you, Cheyenne, for being here. I have a couple of inputs and also a question. I agree with Councilmember Burns and to what you said earlier. I think there has to be some way to grandfather in people. If we do end up passing an ordinance that have more than 4 pets, for example, just because not to add to that burden of, because they're considered family members. So I wouldn't want to do that to anyone to a certain extent, right? Now, if we're talking a breeder level, then I feel that goes into what could technically be defined as a kennel or something to that effect. And we've had those issues. So we might need to differentiate that. What is that in terms of grandfathering in people? But I don't want, let's say we pass an ordinance for 4 and somebody has 5, that they have to either move or give up a pet, to the Riverdale shelter where we're talking about there's already too many animals in there. So that's just my input on that. I agree there has to be a limit, and I like the idea of maybe staying consistent. I think this is what Councilmember Jaramillo was referring to, Thornton and Westminster that are 4, just because they're our neighbors. So I think people tend to move around and live in the same area, working or whatever, so that somebody's not suddenly illegal. And I know a lot of responsible pet owners that have 4 dogs. Here's my question, because I looked up Thornton's ordinance, and this is, I'm assuming something happened for this to be included, but it's a household can have up to 4 adult animals, including dogs, cats, and 1 Vietnamese pot-bellied pig.
I was going to ask about that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, so something definitely happened for that to be in an ordinance, because that's how that happens. It also says domestic birds, fish, snakes under 6 feet, and non-poisonous reptiles are allowed. So I'm assuming that means there's no limit on those. So just for clarification, an ordinance would have to have something. But the pot-bellied pig, I don't even know.
Real.
It's real, I guess.
Absolutely.
So that would be including, so if they had a pot-bellied pig, they can only have 3 dogs or something like that. Have you ever encountered pot-bellied pigs in Northland?
I had one that was running loose on Lavinia Lane one time.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm just going to say, you're going to see in ordinances across the metro area different things that have occurred. I've seen a number of ordinances with things like miniature horses. So same type of issue. And so I think what I heard the police department's recommendation was to just address dogs and cats in this initial ordinance. But I can tell you that in different jurisdictions opening up the different types of quote-unquote domesticated animals, there's a lot of different types that people keep as pets.
That, it made me laugh because I could just picture a little pot-bellied pig running around with dogs. But yeah, I'm all for an ordinance, but I would say to be safer to include people. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
So I did have a question. The ordinance is on page 6, our current municipal code. So I went to the same place that Mayor Pro Tem went because our current code says there shall be no limitation on the number of household pets, and it does not specify cats and dogs. And so I do think we have to maybe write one that's creative, like our neighbors, but because a lot of people are using all sorts of things as pets. They love all sorts of animals. I did wonder about the part that says, or set forth in local or state health regulations. What are our local or state health regulations?
I think they would be things like the not having animals in restaurants. It would be, so the state regulates kennels. One of the issues you would have to include in your ordinance is an exemption for animals below a certain age, because animals have litters, and the idea is you have time to get rid of those new animals. So there are other jurisdictions, state and the health department, that have regulations regarding animals. And I just want to identify one thing, because you've talked about the idea of allowing existing numbers of pets to be non-conforming. Absent a licensing provision, and I'm not recommending a licensing provision, it is incredibly difficult to identify how many pets someone has on a given date. I have seen jurisdictions give some sort of time frame where people can voluntarily self-report the number of animals and the identity of animals as of a certain date. It is a fairly heavy lift to get that information out to the community, but absent a licensing provision, the council's going to have to consider how to create that baseline of numbers that are legal non-conforming numbers, and until those folks come into compliance over time.
Okay. Do we have a limit on chickens?
Yes.
What is the limit on chickens?
6.
That's a pop quiz for Corey. 6? 6 is our limit on chickens?
With a permit.
In goats, don't we do goats?
No goats.
No goats, just
Nothing
chickens?
other than chickens.
Okay, and no roosters?
Bees.
Okay.
That's the only one I've seen.
How many bees?
How many bees? How many bees?
I don't
It's
believe
gonna
I'm in
get,
violation.
so I also went to our neighbors, and I think it does make sense to line up with them. It's very weird that we are completely surrounded by people that have an ordinance and we don't. Concerned about those residents that are breeding or that have, or dog sitting, I think is how this whole thing came up, right? Is that we had someone dog sitting a ridiculous amount of dogs at one time. So, I mean, looking at Thornton, I just want to make sure I understand this. They have 4 dogs, 4 cats, but a combo of 4. So that's smaller than, say, Lafayette. Their combo is higher. That makes sense to me, I guess. And then knowing that Federal Heights is very similar, that's the other one that's closest to us. But it makes sense just to get in line with our neighbors. It's kind of silly that we're not. I would love to know the history of 1980, whatever, as far as what that conversation was like. Because I'm just wondering that it looks like it's about licensing though, and I don't think that's a good idea, because that's a heavy lift for the city, and that's going to cost time and money, and so I don't know. As far as the grandfather clause, is there a way to look at year that they moved in? Like what was their first, like their rental agreement? What was their, like the day they buy their home, that kind of thing, as opposed to licensing?
I think so there's any number of ways to do it. It's going to be a matter of proof if you get a complaint. And that's why at least many jurisdictions, and I am not suggesting licensing, but I am suggesting the city putting out some, if you were to do this, the city putting out some communication to its residents saying you have a given time frame to identify how many pets you have. If you are in excess of the number, identify those pets so the city has a record, and then that becomes your baseline. If someone does not provide that by whatever, within the time frame, a complaint is received and they turn out to have 5 animals, That would be too many because they did not provide the information to the city within the time frame to create the baseline. Otherwise, from an enforcement perspective, it will be incredibly difficult.
Well, that was my last question about enforcement, because it seems to be complaint-based only, right? And cats are very elusive, so how are you going to find one?
And there's actually Colorado appellate law that says it cannot be entirely complaint-based. The city can certainly, as a matter of policy, be primarily complaint-based, but there's case law that says if it is entirely complaint-based, you run the risk that it is being done for a purpose other than the underlying violation, i.e. neighbor disputes, other issues that may trigger those type of complaints.
So does that mean we would have to schedule like sweeps or something? Like,
Not at all, it's just that.
sounds a little biblical, I'm a little worried about that.
Not at all, it's just the ordinance cannot explicitly say it's only complaint-based.
Okay, but in practicality, it might be.
It may be predominantly complaint-based, but we can never say it's always complaint-based.
I do think we should add the pig. They're becoming more and more common. I don't know. Anybody else want to weigh in? It seems like we have some consensus for limits. And I heard 4 around the room, pretty, like 4, 4, and 4, kind of like Thornton and Westminster. Yeah. City Attorney Hoffman, how do you feel about that?
That works.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Very well.
Anything else for tonight? No? Okay. Public invited to be heard. We have a new guest. Would you like to speak to council? Just checking. Just checking.
Piece of support.
That's nice. I appreciate it. Okay.
I was going to leave it on the cat for you.
The cat, that's all right. There being no further business, we are adjourned. My phone's gonna die and I'm gonna be stuck here. I need